Victoria Hale stood by the window of her 47th floor office, gazing down at the city ablaze with nightlight. 30 years old, a billionaire, a powerful CEO. And she had never felt so alone. Tomorrow she would acquire a failing education company. A simple deal. But when she met Ryan Cole, a single father who stubbornly refused to compromise his mission, Victoria began to understand. There was something she had overlooked on her path to conquering her empire. And now, she had to choose between continuing her solitude and success, or risking a life she never dared to dream of. Follow my story to the end, like and comment on the city you're viewing to let me know how far this story has come. The conference room on the 47th floor smelled like leather and ambition. Victoria Hale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection sharp against the Chicago skyline. 30 years old. Self-made billionaire. CEO of Hale Ventures, one of the most aggressive private equity firms in the Midwest. She'd built her empire from absolutely nothing, clawed her way up from a childhood spent in rotating foster homes, and now she owned more than most people could imagine. But standing there, watching the city lights blur into abstract constellations, she felt nothing. Ms. Hale? Her assistant, Jordan, appeared in the doorway. The Cole education team is here. Should I show them in? Victoria turned from the window, her expression settling into the practiced neutrality that made boardrooms nervous. Give me 2 minutes. Jordan nodded and disappeared. Victoria walked to the conference table, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. This acquisition should be simple. Cole Education Solutions, a small startup focused on literacy programs for underserved communities. Good mission, terrible business model. They were bleeding money, drowning in debt, and desperate enough to take whatever she offered. She'd buy it, strip out the inefficiencies, maybe keep the brand name if it tested well with investors. Standard procedure. The door opened. Jordan ushered in 3 people, but Victoria's attention caught on the man in the middle. Ryan Cole didn't look like someone about to lose his company. He looked tired. Actually tired, not the performative exhaustion that executives wore like medals. His suit was off the rack, probably 5 years old, pressed but not quite fitting right across the shoulders. Dark hair needed a trim. He had the kind of face that was hard to read. Not handsome in any conventional way, but there was something solid about it, real. Mr. Cole, Victoria extended her hand. Thank you for coming. His handshake was firm but brief. Ms. Hale, this is Marcus Chen, my CFO, and Sarah Williams, head of programs. They settled around the table. Marcus looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Sarah kept glancing at Ryan like she was worried he might bolt. Victoria opened the folder in front of her. I've reviewed your financials. Your literacy initiative shows promising outcomes, but the revenue model is unsustainable. You're operating at a significant loss. We're aware, Ryan said. His voice was quiet, but steady. That's why we're here. Then let's talk about what happens next. Victoria pulled out a detailed acquisition proposal. Hale Ventures is prepared to acquire Cole Education Solutions. We'll absorb your debt, restructure operations, and integrate your programs into our existing portfolio. You'll receive a fair market valuation, which, given your current position, is generous. She slid the document across the table. Marcus reached for it immediately, but Ryan didn't move. What happens to the programs? He asked. They'll be evaluated for efficiency and scalability. Anything that doesn't meet performance metrics will be phased out or modified. Modified how? Victoria met his gaze. That depends on what the data shows. Ryan picked up the proposal, flipped through it slowly. Sarah leaned over to read with him, her expression growing more anxious with each page. Marcus was already doing calculations on his phone. This restructuring plan, Ryan said, pointing to a section halfway through. It eliminates our community partnerships in low-income neighborhoods. Those are the kids who need us most. Those are also your least profitable programs, Victoria countered. They require the highest resource investment with the lowest revenue return. They're not supposed to generate revenue. They're supposed to help kids who can't afford other options. Mr. Cole, I understand your attachment to the mission, but sentiment doesn't pay creditors. If you want to save any part of what you've built, you need to accept certain realities. Ryan set the proposal down. These aren't sentiments, they're children. Real kids in neighborhoods where the schools are falling apart and the libraries closed years ago. We're the only literacy program some of them have access to. And how many will you help when your company folds in 6 months? Victoria kept her tone even. Because that's your timeline without intervention. You're not just unprofitable, you're insolvent. Marcus cleared his throat. Ryan, she's right about the numbers. We can't make payroll past October. I know the numbers. Ryan's jaw tightened. I also know what happens when programs like ours disappear. I grew up in those neighborhoods. I was one of those kids. Something flickered in Victoria's chest, brief, uncomfortable. She pushed it away. Then you understand how the world works, she said. Good intentions don't scale. If you want to make a real impact, you need sustainable infrastructure. That's what I'm offering. What you're offering is a gutted version of everything we built. You want the brand and the tax benefits, but you don't actually care about the mission. The bluntness surprised her. Most people trying to sell their company wrap desperation in diplomacy. Ryan Cole just put it on the table. I care about results, Victoria said. Effective programs that can sustain themselves and grow. What you've built is admirable, but it's not viable. I can make it viable. By abandoning the communities that need it most. By creating a model that can actually survive and expand. Help more kids in the long run. Ryan studied her for a long moment. Do you believe that? Or is that just what you tell yourself? The question landed harder than it should have. Victoria felt her carefully maintained composure crack just slightly. I believe in reality, Mr. Cole. And the reality is that your company is dying. You can accept my offer and save something, or you can hold on to your principles and watch it all disappear. Your choice. Sarah touched Ryan's arm. Ryan, maybe we should take some time to discuss. No. He stood up. Thank you for your time, Ms. Hale, but we're not interested. Marcus looked like he might cry. Ryan, wait. We're done here. Ryan headed for the door. Victoria stayed seated. You're making a mistake. He paused, hand on the door frame. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. And then he was gone. Sarah scrambled after him, whispering urgently. Marcus grabbed the proposal, looking torn between following his CEO and staying to negotiate. Go ahead, Victoria told him. I'll have Jordan send over the terms, in case he changes his mind. Marcus nodded gratefully and hurried out. The door closed. The conference room fell silent. Victoria sat alone at the massive table, surrounded by expensive furniture and carefully curated art, and felt the same hollow emptiness that followed her everywhere. She'd just watched someone walk away from a lifeline because of principle, and she couldn't decide if he was brave or stupid. Probably stupid. She gathered her papers, tried to shake off the strange dissatisfaction settling in her chest. This wasn't personal. It was business. If Ryan Cole wanted to drown rather than compromise, that was his decision. Her phone buzzed. Jordan's text appeared. Your 3 p.m. is here, Princeton MedTech team. Victoria stood, smoothed her jacket, rebuilt her professional mask. Another meeting. Another acquisition. Another piece added to an empire that never quite felt like enough. But Ryan Cole's question lingered. Do you believe that? Or is that just what you tell yourself? She ignored it. She was very good at ignoring things. 3 days later, Victoria's head of acquisitions dropped a folder on her desk. Cole Education is officially in default, Peter said. Bank's calling the loan. They've got maybe 2 weeks before forced liquidation. Victoria opened the folder, scanned the documents. Have we heard from them? Marcus Chen called yesterday. Wants to reopen negotiations. Cole won't return his calls. Where's Cole? According to Chen, he's been at their community centers trying to find emergency funding, going to every foundation and donor he's ever worked with. Peter shrugged. It's not going to be enough. Victoria closed the folder. Set up another meeting. Offer the same terms. You sure? We could probably get it for less now. They're desperate. Same terms, she repeated. Peter left. Victoria turned to her computer, pulled up Cole Education's website. Photos of kids reading, smiling, holding books. Testimonials from parents. A mission statement that used words like equity and access and transformation. She clicked through to the staff page. Ryan's photo looked like it had been taken on someone's phone, Slightly blurry, awkward smile, like he'd been caught mid-laugh. His bio was 3 sentences. Ryan Cole founded Cole Education Solutions after teaching in Chicago public schools for 6 years. He lives on the South Side with his daughter, Emma. He believes every child deserves a chance to discover the power of reading. Simple, direct, no corporate polish. Victoria found herself staring at the photo longer than necessary. Then she closed the browser and returned to her actual work. The meeting happened 5 days later. Same conference room. This time Ryan came alone. He looked worse. Shadows under his eyes, tension in his shoulders. When he sat down, he placed a folder on the table but didn't open it. "Thank you for seeing me again," he said. Victoria waited. "I've spent the last week trying to find alternatives. Other investors, emergency grants, community funding, anything that would let us stay independent." He paused. "There's nothing. You were right about the timeline. We're out of options. So you're ready to accept the offer?" "I'm ready to negotiate." Victoria almost smiled. Even now, he wasn't giving in completely. "What do you want?" "Keep the community programs, all of them, non-negotiable. Mr. Cole, I know they're not profitable. I know they drag down the overall numbers, but they're the heart of what we do. Remove them and you're buying a shell. Keep them and you get something that actually matters." Matters to whom? To the kids we serve, to the communities we work in, to anyone who thinks education should be about more than metrics and margins. Victoria leaned back. "Those programs cost 3 times what they generate. Even if I wanted to keep them, my board would never approve it. Then restructure the deal, take a smaller profit margin, reduce my payout. I don't care about getting rich. I care about keeping those programs alive." "You have a daughter, don't you?" The question came out before Victoria had fully thought it through. Ryan's expression shifted. "Yes. Why? You're willing to walk away from financial security for your child because of a principle. That seems," she searched for the right word, "reckless. Emma's fine. We don't need much. Everyone needs security. Security's not the same as money." Ryan held her gaze. "Emma needs to see that some things matter more than profit, that you don't abandon people just because helping them is expensive." Victoria felt that uncomfortable flicker again. "You think I've abandoned people. I think you've probably had to make choices that prioritize survival over idealism. I'm not judging that, but this is my company, my mission. I get to decide what matters. Even if that decision hurts your daughter's future?" "My daughter's future includes growing up in a world where people give a damn about each other, where someone's value isn't measured by their revenue potential. That's worth more than whatever I'd get from selling out." Silence stretched between them. Outside the windows, Chicago gleamed in afternoon sunlight, cold, beautiful, indifferent. Victoria made a decision that surprised her. "What if I agree to keep the community programs for 2 years? After that, we reevaluate based on performance. If they show measurable impact, we continue them. If not, we phase them out gradually." Ryan frowned. 2 years isn't enough to, "It's what I can justify to my board, and it gives you time to prove the program's work. That's more than you'll get from liquidation." He studied her, clearly trying to figure out if this was a real offer or a negotiating tactic. "Why would you do that?" Good question. Victoria wasn't entirely sure herself. "Because I'd rather acquire something with integrity than pick apart a corpse," she said. "And because maybe you were right that some things matter more than optimal profit margins." She didn't add, "And because something about watching you fight for this makes me feel something I can't quite name, and I don't know what to do with that." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, 3 years, and you give the program directors autonomy on implementation. You can monitor metrics, but you don't dictate methods. 2.5 years, directors report quarterly to my team. We collaborate on strategy. Deal." They shook hands. This time, the contact lasted a beat longer. "I'll have the contracts drafted," Victoria said. "We can close within 30 days if you're ready." "We're ready." Ryan stood, gathered his folder. At the door, he paused. "Thank you. I know you didn't have to do this." "Don't thank me yet. I drive a hard bargain on implementation." A slight smile crossed his face, the first she'd seen from him. It changed his whole appearance, softened the exhaustion into something warmer. "I'd expect nothing less," he said. After he left, Victoria sat alone in the conference room again. But this time the emptiness felt different, smaller maybe, or just more obvious. Her phone buzzed. Peter. "Did he sign?" She typed back, "We have a deal. Draft contracts with the community program clause. 2.5-year guarantee. That's going to complicate board approval. Then I'll handle the board." She set down her phone and returned to the window. Somewhere out there in the sprawling city, Ryan Cole was probably calling Marcus and Sarah to share the news. Maybe he'd go home to his daughter and tell her they were going to be okay. Victoria wondered what that felt like, having someone to go home to. Someone who cared about your day beyond what it meant for quarterly returns. She'd built an empire, conquered markets, made herself untouchable, and she'd never been more alone. The acquisition closed on a Tuesday morning in late September. Paperwork signed, money transferred, Cole Education Solutions officially absorbed into Hale Ventures' portfolio. The local business press covered it as a feel-good story. Billionaire CEO saves community literacy program. Victoria didn't read the articles. She was already moving on to the next deal. Except she wasn't. Peter noticed first. "You've reviewed the Cole implementation plan 4 times. That's unusual for you." She ignored him. But he was right. She kept pulling up the files, reading through program descriptions, community partnerships, outcome metrics, learning the shape of what Ryan had built. 2 weeks after closing, she scheduled a site visit. "I want to see the programs in action," she told Jordan. "Set it up with Cole." "All of them? There are 17 sites." "Start with the flagship, Southside Center." Jordan made the arrangements. Victoria told herself this was standard due diligence. New acquisition, responsible oversight, nothing unusual. She definitely wasn't thinking about Ryan Cole's quiet intensity, or the way he'd walked away from her first offer without hesitation, or that brief smile that had caught her off guard. She was a professional. This was business. The Southside Center occupied a renovated storefront on a street that had seen better decades. Paint peeling, sidewalk cracked, but someone had planted flowers in barrels outside the entrance. A hand-painted sign read, "Cole Education Solutions, where every story starts." Victoria arrived exactly on time. Ryan met her at the door, looking more relaxed than he had in her conference room. Jeans, button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up. Like he belonged here in a way he hadn't belonged in corporate environments. "Welcome," he said. "Thanks for coming. I wanted to see what I bought." "Fair enough. Come on in." The interior surprised her. She'd expected institutional, fluorescent lights, cheap furniture, that particular smell of underfunded nonprofit spaces. Instead, she found warmth. Bright colors on the walls, comfortable seating areas, shelves overflowing with books. Kids' artwork everywhere. The space felt alive. "We run after-school programs here 4 days a week," Ryan explained as he led her through. "Tutoring, reading groups, homework help. We also do summer intensive programs and family literacy workshops." They passed a room where a teenage girl was reading to 3 younger children, all of them sprawled on beanbags. Another room held a small computer lab, older machines but functional. "How many kids do you serve here?" Victoria asked. "About 80 regularly, another 40 or so rotate through depending on need." Ryan paused by a wall covered in photos. "These are our graduates, kids who started with us reading below grade level and ended up proficient or above." Victoria studied the faces. Different ages, different backgrounds, all smiling. "What's your success rate?" 73% show significant improvement within a year, 89% if they stay with us for 2 years or more. "Those are good numbers. They're real kids." Ryan pointed to one photo, a boy, maybe 10, holding a book and grinning. "That's Marcus. Not my CFO, different Marcus. Started with us 3 years ago, could barely read his own name. Now he's in 6th grade honors English, wants to be a writer." What changed for him? Someone cared. Someone showed up consistently and didn't give up. That's what most of these kids need. Not some revolutionary teaching method, just steady support from adults who believe in them. They continued the tour. Ryan introduced her to staff members, showed her curriculum materials, explained their approach. He talked about literacy like it was a fundamental right, Not a commodity. His passion was obvious, but it wasn't performative. He genuinely believed in this work. In a small office, they sat down to review program details. Ryan pulled out assessment data, volunteer schedules, community partnership agreements. He answered her questions thoroughly, didn't try to hide challenges or inflate successes. Your volunteer retention is impressive, Victoria noted, scanning a spreadsheet. Most nonprofits struggle with that. We treat them well. Training, support, appreciation. People stick around when they feel valued. Novel concept. He smiled slightly. You'd be surprised how many organizations forget that. Victoria found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did during business meetings. Ryan wasn't trying to sell her anything or manage her impression. He was just showing her what mattered to him. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why education? You said you taught in public schools before this. You could have made more money doing almost anything else. Ryan leaned back, considering. I grew up in neighborhoods like this one. Single mom, worked 2 jobs, barely keeping us afloat. School was the only stable thing in my life. Teachers who cared, librarians who let me hide in the stacks, free lunch program that kept me fed. Education gave me a way out. So this is personal. Everything important is personal. I remember what it felt like to be a kid who didn't have much but found whole worlds in books. I want other kids to have that experience, to know they matter enough that someone invested time and resources in their future. Even if it's not financially sustainable. I'm working on the sustainability part. That's why I agreed to your acquisition. I need your business expertise to make this last, but I won't sacrifice the mission for the margins. Victoria set down the spreadsheet. You know, most people think I'm ruthless, cold, only interested in profit. Are they wrong? The directness should have annoyed her. Instead, it felt refreshing. Probably not, she admitted. I've built my career on making hard decisions that prioritize results over feelings. It's worked. Has it? She met his eyes. What do you mean? You're 30 years old, running a billion-dollar company, living in what I assume is an incredible penthouse somewhere downtown. By most measures, you've won, but when you walked into that first meeting, you looked like the loneliest person I'd ever seen. The observation hit like a physical blow. Victoria felt her defenses rising. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't, but I recognize the look. I wore it for 2 years after my wife died. Victoria froze. I didn't know. I'm sorry. It's been 4 years. Emma was 3 when it happened. Brain aneurysm. No warning. Ryan's expression was steady but sad. For a long time after, I was functional but empty. Going through motions, taking care of Emma, teaching, existing, but not really living. This organization helped me find purpose again. Something beyond just surviving. How? It reminded me that connection matters, that we're built for community, for helping each other, for being part of something bigger than our own pain. I poured everything into building this because I needed to matter to someone beyond my daughter, to be useful in a way that justified taking up space in the world. Victoria didn't trust herself to speak. Something in her chest felt tight and unfamiliar. I'm not saying profit is evil, Ryan continued. You need resources to make a difference. But if you only focus on accumulation, money, power, success, you end up with a lot of stuff and nothing that actually fills you up. I think you know that already. She did. She absolutely did. Before she could respond, Ryan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned. Sorry, I need to take this. It's Emma's school. Of course. He stepped into the hallway. Victoria heard his voice shift into dad mode, concerned, focused. When he returned a minute later, his expression had changed completely. I have to go, he said, already grabbing his jacket. Emma's having an asthma attack. She's in the nurse's office. They're saying I should come get her. Is she okay? She has a rescue inhaler, but sometimes the attacks are bad. I need to... He stopped, clearly torn. We were supposed to finish the program review. Go. Your daughter needs you. I can reschedule. Ryan, go. He hesitated one more second, then nodded. Thank you. I'll call you later to set up another time. Victoria watched him rush out, grabbing his keys, phone pressed to his ear as he spoke with the school nurse. The door swung shut behind him, and she sat alone in the small office surrounded by evidence of his life's work. Most CEOs she knew would have delegated the pickup, sent a nanny or assistant, stayed to finish the important meeting with the investor who literally owned their company now. Ryan hadn't even considered it. Victoria gathered her things slowly, processing what had just happened. The conversation they'd had, the way he'd named her loneliness without judgment, the immediate shift in his priorities when his daughter needed him. On the drive back downtown, she couldn't stop thinking about it, about him, about the way he'd built something that mattered, even as it fell apart financially, about his willingness to walk away from her first offer rather than compromise his values, about the fact that he'd seen right through her carefully constructed armor and called her lonely. She parked in her building's garage, rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, unlocked her penthouse apartment. 3,000 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture, curated art. Everything perfect. Everything empty. Victoria stood in her living room, looking out at the Chicago skyline, and felt the truth settle over her like a weight. Ryan was right. She'd won every game she'd ever played, accumulated more wealth than she could spend in 3 lifetimes, built an empire that commanded respect and fear. And she was completely, devastatingly alone. No one called to check if she was okay. No one needed her beyond what she could provide professionally. No one would rush out of a meeting to come get her if she needed help. She'd traded everything soft and vulnerable for hard-edged success, and now she didn't know how to trade back. Victoria poured a glass of wine she didn't drink, sat on a couch that cost more than most cars, and wondered when exactly she'd stopped being a person and become just a function, just a role, just the ruthless CEO everyone expected. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Ryan. Emma's doing better. Thank you for asking. Sorry I had to run out. Let me know when you want to reschedule the site visit." She stared at the message. He'd taken time while dealing with his daughter's health crisis to text her an update, because it was the kind thing to do. Because despite everything he was handling, he still thought about other people. Victoria typed, "Glad she's okay. No rush on rescheduling. Take care of her." His response came a minute later. "Will do. Thanks for understanding." She set down the phone and returned to the window. Somewhere out in the city, Ryan was probably sitting with Emma, making sure she could breathe, being the parent she'd never had. And Victoria was here, alone in her perfect prison, realizing for the first time that maybe winning wasn't supposed to feel this empty. Maybe success without connection was just another form of poverty. And maybe, Ryan Cole had just shown her what she'd been missing all along. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in her enormous bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Ryan. The way he'd looked at her when he said she seemed lonely. The immediate shift when his daughter needed him. The text he'd sent even while dealing with a medical crisis. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up and went to her home office. Pulled up Cole Education's files again. Read through every program description, every community partnership agreement, every metric Ryan had compiled. She told herself she was doing due diligence, learning the acquisition inside out. But really, she was trying to understand him, trying to figure out what made someone choose purpose over profit, connection over security, messy human reality over clean corporate success. By dawn, she'd made a decision that would have horrified her board. At 8 sharp, she called Peter. "I'm taking direct oversight of the Cole Education integration." Silence on the other end. Then, "You? Personally? Is that a problem?" "No, just, you don't usually get involved at that level. We have people who handle implementation. This acquisition is different. I want hands-on involvement." "Okay." Peter sounded confused but didn't push. "What do you need from me?" "Clear my schedule every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon for the next month. I'll be doing site visits, meeting with program staff, reviewing operations in detail. That's a lot of time for a relatively small acquisition." "It's an investment in understanding impact metrics," Victoria said, using language that sounded professional, even though her motivations were anything but. "If the community programs succeed, the model could scale to other markets. I need to see how they work firsthand." It was a reasonable explanation. It was also completely beside the point. She wanted to see Ryan again, wanted to be around someone who felt real in a way no one in her world Did. Wanted to understand what his life looked like, how he'd built something meaningful despite having so little financial cushion. Wanted, if she was honest with herself, to feel less alone. The following Tuesday, she drove back to the Southside Center. Ryan met her at the door again, looking surprised. "I wasn't expecting you," he said. "I thought we'd schedule something formal." "I prefer dropping in. You get a more accurate picture when people aren't preparing for inspections." "Fair enough. Come on in." The center was in full operation. Kids everywhere, volunteers helping with homework, the comfortable chaos of learning happening organically. Ryan navigated through it with practiced ease, greeting kids by name, checking in on activities, troubleshooting a printer jam in the computer lab. Victoria followed, observing. This was his element. He wasn't performing leadership. He was just present, available, paying attention to what people needed. In the small office, they sat down with program data. Victoria had prepared specific questions about outcome measurements, volunteer training protocols, curriculum development. Ryan answered each one thoroughly, but she noticed he kept glancing toward the main room. "You can go," she said finally. "If you need to check on something." "No, it's fine. Sarah's got everything under control." "You're worried anyway." He smiled slightly. "Is it that obvious? You keep looking at the door like something might be on fire." "Old teacher habits. Always monitoring the room, making sure no one's struggling or getting left behind. That must be exhausting." "It's just how my brain works now. Emma's the same way. She can't walk past a younger kid without checking if they need help. It's actually kind of annoying sometimes." The mention of his daughter sparked Victoria's curiosity. "How is she? After the asthma attack?" "Good. It was relatively mild, thank God. She was back at school the next day, driving her teacher crazy with questions about cloud formation. She likes science? She likes everything. Last week it was dinosaurs. Week before that, marine biology. She's 7 and wants to know how the entire universe works." Ryan's expression softened the way it always did when he talked about Emma. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Also the most terrifying." "Terrifying how?" "Because I'm responsible for her. Completely. Every decision I make affects her future. When I was trying to save the company, Sarah kept telling me to just take your first offer, that I was being selfish, risking Emma's security for my ego. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was." Victoria set down the spreadsheet she'd been reviewing. "Do you regret negotiating?" "No, but I lose sleep wondering if I'm making the right choices, if I'm being a good father or just stubborn." "You left an important meeting the second she needed you. I'd say that answers the question." "Would you have done the same if you had a kid?" The question caught her off guard. "I don't have kids. I don't have anyone." "By choice?" Victoria considered how to answer. "By consequence. I spent my 20s building a career, making connections that advanced my goals, avoiding anything that might slow me down or make me vulnerable. Relationships were distractions. Family was a concept for other people. And now I'm 30, successful beyond anything I imagined, and I can't remember the last time someone touched me who wasn't a masseuse I paid $300 an hour." She hadn't meant to say that last part. It just came out, raw and honest in a way she never was. Ryan didn't look shocked or pitying, just thoughtful. "That sounds really lonely." "It is. So why not change it?" "Because I don't know how. I don't know how to be the kind of person who lets people in, who trusts that connection won't be weaponized or abandoned. I grew up in foster care, 12 different homes before I aged out at 18. Every time I started to care about someone, I got moved. Every time I thought maybe this family would keep me, they didn't. So I learned not to care, not to need anyone. And now that's just who I am." She couldn't believe she was telling him this. She'd never told anyone this, not even therapists she'd paid specifically to excavate her damage. But Ryan just nodded. "That makes sense. You protected yourself the only way you knew how. It worked. I survived. I built something no one can take away. Except you're still alone." "Except I'm still alone," she echoed. They sat in silence for a moment. Through the door, Victoria could hear kids laughing, volunteers helping with multiplication tables. The ordinary sounds of a Wednesday afternoon that felt extraordinary because of how foreign they were to her life. "Can I show you something?" Ryan asked. "Sure." He led her to the main reading room where a volunteer was working with a girl around Emma's age. The child was struggling through a picture book, stumbling over words, growing visibly frustrated. "That's Jasmine," Ryan said quietly. "Second grade, been with us for 3 months. When she started, she couldn't read at all. Now she's working through early chapter books." They watched as the volunteer patiently sounded out a difficult word with Jasmine, celebrated when she got it right, gently corrected when she didn't. The girl's face showed intense concentration, then pride when she finished a page. "See that?" Ryan pointed to Jasmine's expression. "That's why I do this. That moment when a kid realizes they can do something they thought was impossible, when they start to believe they might be smart after all, that they might have a future beyond what their circumstances suggest." "You think reading does all that?" "I think caring does that. The reading is just the vehicle. What matters is that someone shows up for these kids consistently, believes in them, doesn't give up when progress is slow. Most of them don't have enough of that in their lives." Victoria watched Jasmine move to the next page, gaining confidence with each sentence. "What happens to her if we cut this program?" "She falls through the cracks, goes back to struggling in school, starts to believe she's not capable, eventually stops trying. Ends up another statistic in the school-to-prison pipeline. That's dramatic. That's reality. I've seen it happen over and over. Kids with potential who never get the support they need, so they fail and eventually quit. This program breaks that cycle. That's why I'll fight like hell to keep it running." Victoria felt something shift in her chest. She'd spent her whole career making decisions based on data, on financial projections, on what made sense for bottom lines and shareholder value. But standing here, watching Jasmine sound out words with fierce determination, she understood what Ryan had been trying to tell her. Some things mattered more than metrics. "I want to meet her," Victoria said suddenly. Ryan looked surprised. "Jasmine? If that's okay, I want to talk to her." "Sure, come on." He approached the reading corner, waited for a natural pause. "Hey Jasmine, this is Ms. Hale. She helps run the center now. Can she ask you a few questions?" Jasmine looked up with large, serious eyes. "Okay." Victoria crouched down to the girl's level, suddenly unsure what to say. She never interacted with children, had no idea how to talk to them. "Hi, Jasmine. Ryan tells me you're working really hard on your reading." "Yeah, it's hard, but I'm getting better. What's your favorite book so far?" Jasmine's face brightened. "Junie B. Jones. She's funny and she gets in trouble a lot, but she's not bad, just curious. My teacher says I'm like her." "That sounds like a compliment." "I think so too." Jasmine paused. "Are you going to close the center? My friend Marcus said maybe it's closing." The direct question hit Victoria harder than any board meeting ever had. "No, we're keeping it open." "Good. I like it here. Miss Sarah is nice and she doesn't get mad when I mess up words." "I'm glad." Jasmine returned to her book, clearly done with the conversation. Victoria stood, feeling strangely shaken. "You okay?" Ryan asked as they walked back to the office. I've approved cuts to programs like this before. Signed off on closures and restructuring without ever thinking about the actual kids affected. They were just numbers on a spreadsheet. And now they're real. And I don't know how to reconcile that with how I've operated for the last decade. Maybe you don't have to reconcile it. Maybe you just have to decide what kind of leader you want to be going forward. They returned to the office, but Victoria couldn't focus on the data anymore. She kept thinking about Jasmine's question, the fear underneath it. The way this place represented safety and possibility for kids who didn't have much of either. "I need to go," she said abruptly. "I have a board meeting at 4. "Of course. Thanks for coming by. Same time Thursday?" Ryan nodded. "I'll be here." Victoria drove back downtown with her mind racing. She had 2 hours before the board meeting where she was supposed to present quarterly projections and approve cost-cutting measures across 3 portfolio companies. Standard business. But she couldn't stop seeing Jasmine's face, couldn't stop hearing her ask if the center was closing. The board meeting went poorly. Victoria was distracted, unfocused, gave vague answers to specific questions. Richard Chen, her most aggressive board member, called her out. "You've been off your game lately. Is something wrong?" I'm fine. The coal acquisition is relatively small. Why is it consuming so much of your attention? I'm ensuring proper integration. You have people for that. Your time is better spent on the Midwest medical deal. That's a $200 million transaction that needs your focus. He was right. She knew he was right. The coal acquisition was a rounding error in her portfolio. She should delegate it and move on. But she couldn't. I'll balance both, she said firmly. Coal education requires hands-on oversight due to the community program components. I need to understand the model before we consider scaling. Richard didn't look convinced, but he dropped it. The meeting continued, decisions were made, profits were projected. Victoria went through the motions while thinking about a 7-year-old girl learning to read. After everyone left, Peter lingered. Richard's right, you know. You're not yourself lately. I'm evolving my approach to impact investments. Victoria, I've worked with you for 5 years. This isn't about impact investments. What's going on? She almost told him. Almost admitted that she'd spent her entire adult life building walls, and now she'd met someone who made her want to tear them down. That she was lonely and lost and had no idea how to be a person instead of just a function. But Peter was an employee, not a friend. She didn't have friends. I'm fine, she said, just exploring new strategic directions. He didn't believe her, but he nodded and left. Victoria stayed in the conference room long after everyone had gone, looking out at the city lights and wondering what Ryan and Emma were doing right now. Probably having dinner, talking about their days. Being a family in ways Victoria couldn't quite imagine. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Emma wanted me to tell you thank you for keeping the center open. She's never met you, but she's decided you're a hero. Thought you should know. Victoria stared at the message. A 7-year-old thought she was a hero for doing basic human decency. The bar was so low, and she'd spent years limbo dancing under it. She typed back, "Tell her I'm just trying to do the right thing, for whatever that's worth." It's worth a lot. See you Thursday. Victoria set down her phone and made another decision that would have concerned her board. She was going to spend more time at coal education. Not because it made business sense, but because being around Ryan and his work made her feel something other than empty. Even if it was terrifying. Even if she had no idea what she was doing. Even if it meant risking the careful control she'd maintained for so long. Thursday afternoon, she showed up at the center again. This time with coffee and pastries for the staff. Sarah looked shocked when Victoria walked in carrying 2 boxes from an expensive bakery. Ms. Hale, you didn't have to. I wanted to thank everyone for their patience during the transition. I know acquisitions are stressful. That's really thoughtful. Sarah took the boxes, still looking surprised. Ryan's in the back with a parent. Should be done in a few minutes. No rush. Victoria wandered through the center while she waited. Kids were arriving for after-school programs. Volunteers were setting up activity stations. The space hummed with purposeful energy. She recognized Jasmine in a corner, already deep into a new book. Ms. Hale. She turned to find a woman around her age, maybe early 30s, holding a little boy's hand. The child was crying softly. I'm sorry to bother you, but are you in charge here? I own the parent company, yes. What's wrong? I'm Deshaun's mom. He's in kindergarten and he's really struggling. His teacher said he needs one-on-one help, but the school can't provide it. I heard this place does tutoring, but when I called yesterday, someone said you might be closing some programs. Please don't close the kindergarten program. We can't afford private tutors, and Deshaun is already so far behind. The woman's desperation was palpable. Victoria felt it like a physical weight. We're not closing the kindergarten program, she said. Bring Deshaun in tomorrow. We'll get him assessed and matched with a tutor. Really? Oh, thank God. Thank you so much. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I've been so worried. He's a smart kid. He just needs help, and I don't know how to teach reading. I barely graduated high school myself. It's okay. That's what we're here for. After the woman left with Deshaun, Victoria stood in the hallway, feeling shaken again. She'd just made a promise to a desperate mother without consulting budgets or program capacity. She had no idea if they even had kindergarten tutors available, but she couldn't let that little boy fall through the cracks. That was kind of you. Ryan had appeared beside her, watching the family leave. Deshawn's had a rough start. Mom's doing her best, but she's working 2 jobs. Kid spends most afternoons with his grandmother who doesn't speak English. He needs support. Do we have capacity for him? We'll make capacity. That's how this works. A kid needs help, we figure it out. That's not sustainable business practice. No, but it's the right thing to do. Victoria looked at him. Really looked. Tired eyes, slightly rumpled clothes, the weight of responsibility visible in his shoulders. He was barely holding this together financially, probably exhausted, certainly stressed about the acquisition and what it meant for his mission, but he just committed to helping another struggling kid without hesitation. How do you do this, she asked. How do you carry all of this without breaking? Who says I don't break? I break all the time. I just get back up because Emma's watching and these kids are counting on me. You keep going because the alternative is giving up, and that's not an option. I don't know if I could do what you do. Sure you could. You're already doing it. You kept the programs running when you could have shut them down. You're here on a Thursday afternoon instead of in your office making money. You just promised Deshawn's mom we'd help her kid. That's leadership that matters. That's not leadership. That's just basic humanity, which is surprisingly rare at your level. Trust me, I've dealt with enough investors and board members to know. Most of them see kids like Deshawn as statistics. You see them as people. Victoria wanted to believe him, wanted to think she was becoming someone better than the ruthless CEO she'd built herself into. But she also knew she was here partly because Ryan made her feel less alone, because being around him was the first time in years she'd felt something other than empty ambition. Was that selfish? Using this program, these kids, as a way to feel better about her own life? Can we talk? She asked suddenly. Not about the programs, about something else. Ryan looked surprised, but nodded. Sure. Let me just check in with Sarah. They ended up walking to a small park 2 blocks from the center. October afternoon, leaves turning, the air sharp with coming winter. They sat on a bench overlooking a playground where a handful of kids were climbing on equipment that had seen better years. I don't know how to do this, Victoria said. Do what? Be a person, connect with people, care about things beyond business outcomes. I've spent so long focused on winning, on accumulating success, on never being vulnerable. And now I'm 30 years old and I don't have anyone. No family, no real friends, no one who would notice if I disappeared for a week. Just employees and business contacts and people who want things from me. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked if I was lonely, and the answer is yes, desperately. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to be the kind of person who has what you have. A daughter who loves you, work that matters, connections that feel real. You think I have it all figured out? You seem to. He laughed, but it wasn't amused. Victoria, I'm barely holding it together. Emma's got health issues I can't always afford to treat properly. I lie awake at night wondering if I'm screwing her up by being a single parent. I sold my company to you because I was out of options and terrified of failing everyone who counted on me. I'm not some enlightened person who has life figured out. I'm just stumbling forward and hoping I don't break anything too important. But you have purpose. You have people who need you. So do you now. Those kids at the center, the staff, the families we serve, they need you to keep funding these programs, to make good decisions about resource allocation, to care about outcomes beyond profit margins. You have the power to change lives. That's purpose. It doesn't feel like enough. What would feel like enough? The question hung in the air. Victoria watched kids on the playground, their easy laughter and uncomplicated joy. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm too damaged to ever feel satisfied. Or maybe you've just been looking in the wrong places. Where should I be looking? Ryan met her eyes. At what actually makes you happy, not accomplished or successful or impressive. Actually happy. When's the last time you felt joy? Victoria thought about it, tried to remember a moment of genuine happiness, not achievement or satisfaction or vindication, just simple joy. She couldn't. I don't remember, she said quietly. Then that's what you need to figure out. Not how to be less lonely or more connected. How to be happy. What brings you joy? I don't think I know how to be happy. Then maybe it's time to learn. They sat in silence as the afternoon faded toward evening. Kids were being called home. the playground emptying, streetlights beginning to flicker on. Victoria felt something crack open inside her, something she'd kept locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Vulnerability. The terrifying possibility that maybe she could be more than what she'd made herself into. "Will you help me?" And the question came out small, almost childlike. Ryan looked at her with something that might have been compassion. "Help you how?" "Figure out how to be human again. How to care about things and let people in and be someone worth knowing beyond what I can provide professionally. I know that's asking a lot. I know you don't owe me anything, but I don't have anyone else to ask and you seem like you actually understand." "Yes." She stopped mid-sentence. "Yes? I'll help. If you're serious about it. If you're actually willing to do the work and not just treating this as another project to optimize." "I'm serious." "Then, okay, we'll figure it out together." Victoria felt tears threatening for the first time in years. She blinked them back, but Ryan noticed. "It's okay to cry," he said gently. "It's actually healthy." "I don't cry. I haven't cried since I was 16. Maybe that's part of the problem." The tears came then, sudden and unstoppable. Victoria put her face in her hands and sobbed. Ugly, messy, years of locked-away grief and loneliness pouring out in a public park while Ryan sat beside her, not trying to fix it or make it stop, just present. When she finally calmed down, she felt emptied out and strangely lighter. "Sorry," she managed. "Don't apologize. That took courage. That took a breakdown. Sometimes they're the same thing." They walked back to the center as darkness fell. Victoria felt raw and exposed, like she'd stripped off protective layers and had no idea how to function without them. At her car, Ryan paused. "Same time next week? For the site visit or for me falling apart?" "Either. Both. Whatever you need." Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. She got in her car and drove back to her empty penthouse, but something had shifted. The loneliness felt different now, still present, still painful, but no longer quite so absolute. Someone had seen her, really seen her. Not the polished CEO facade, but the broken, lonely person underneath. And he hadn't run away. That night, Victoria did something she hadn't done since college. She ordered takeout, not from the expensive restaurant that usually delivered to her building, but from a regular Thai place near the South Side Center. She ate it sitting on her kitchen floor, crying intermittently, feeling completely unhinged and strangely, impossibly, maybe just a little bit hopeful. The Thai food containers were still on Victoria's kitchen floor the next morning when her phone rang at 6:30. Ryan's name on the screen made her heart do something uncomfortable. "Hello? Hey, sorry to call so early. Emma wanted to invite you to something, and she's relentless when she gets an idea in her head." Victoria heard a small voice in the background. "Dad, let me talk to her." Hold on. Ryan's voice grew muffled as he apparently handed over the phone. "Ms. Hale." Emma's voice was high and eager. "This is Emma Cole. My dad says you help run his center and you're really important." "Hi, Emma. Your dad talks about you all the time." "He does? That's embarrassing. Anyway, I'm doing a presentation at school on Friday about what my family does for work. And I wanted to include the center because Dad spends like all his time there. Can you come? It's at 10 o'clock and Dad said I had to ask permission first because you're probably busy being a billionaire." Victoria found herself smiling despite the early hour and her emotional hangover from yesterday. "I'd love to come." "Really? Oh, good. Dad said you'd probably say no, but I told him you seemed nice when you promised to keep the programs open. Okay, I have to go eat breakfast now. Bye." The phone rustled and Ryan came back on. "Sorry, she ambushed me this morning with this plan and wouldn't let it go." "It's fine. I'll be there." "What school?" "Lincoln Elementary, room 204, but seriously, if you're too busy, I'll be there," Victoria repeated. "What's the presentation about?" "Career day thing. Kids talk about what their parents do. Emma's been planning hers for weeks. She made a poster with photos of the center and everything." "She sounds intense." "You have no idea. Yesterday she spent an hour trying to teach our neighbor's cat to read. The cat was not interested." Victoria laughed, actually laughed, which felt strange after crying herself to sleep. "I'll see you Friday." After they hung up, she sat on her kitchen floor surrounded by takeout containers and wondered what she was doing. She was the CEO of a major investment firm. She had acquisitions to close, board meetings to run, strategy sessions that actually mattered to her bottom line. But instead, she was going to a second-grade career day. Peter definitely noticed when she blocked off Friday morning on her calendar. "Lincoln Elementary?" he asked, appearing in her office doorway. "Are we acquiring a school district now?" "Personal commitment. Move my 10:30 to the afternoon." "Victoria, the Midwest medical team is flying in specifically for that meeting. Then they can wait a few hours. Reschedule it." Peter looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. "You're the boss." After he left, Victoria pulled up the Cole education files again, but her mind kept drifting to the phone call, to Emma's unselfconscious enthusiasm, the way she'd called Victoria nice like it was the established fact. No one called Victoria nice. People called her brilliant, ruthless, intimidating, occasionally terrifying. But nice? That wasn't in her repertoire, except apparently to a 7-year-old who'd decided they were friends. The rest of the week dragged. Victoria went through the motions, meetings, conference calls, reviewing financial projections, but she kept thinking about Friday, about seeing Ryan again, about meeting Emma properly instead of just hearing her voice on the phone. Thursday night, she stood in her walk-in closet trying to figure out what to wear to an elementary school. Everything she owned screamed corporate intimidation. Designer suits, power dresses, clothes meant to command boardrooms and impress investors. Nothing remotely appropriate for 7-year-olds. She finally settled on dark jeans and a simple sweater, the most casual outfit she owned that didn't look like she was trying too hard. Then she felt ridiculous for caring this much about a child's school presentation. But she did care. That was the problem. Friday morning, she drove to Lincoln Elementary with her stomach in knots. The building was old, needed paint, had that particular institutional smell of cafeteria food and floor cleaner. Kids swarmed the hallways, loud and chaotic in ways that made Victoria want to retreat to the quiet control of her office. Room 204 was decorated with alphabet posters and student artwork. Ryan stood near the door talking to a woman Victoria assumed was the teacher. When he saw her, his face brightened. "You came." "I said I would." "I know, but I half expected you to cancel." "This is Ms. Rodriguez, Emma's teacher." The teacher shook Victoria's hand with a warm smile. "Emma's been talking about you all week. You made quite an impression." "I just promised to keep a program running. That's basic decency, not impressive." "You'd be surprised how many people don't manage basic decency." Ms. Rodriguez gestured to the classroom where kids were settling into their seats. "Emma's up fourth. Feel free to sit anywhere." Victoria found a spot in the back next to Ryan. The tiny chairs were not designed for adults, and she felt absurdly conspicuous trying to fold her legs under the miniature desk. Ryan was trying not to laugh. "Comfortable? This is ridiculous. Why are the chairs so small?" "Because children are small. Novel concept." "I'm aware children are small. I just didn't realize how small until I tried to sit in their furniture." A little boy went first, talking about his mom, who was a nurse. He showed photos of her in scrubs, explained what nurses do, lost his train of thought halfway through and just stood there until Ms. Rodriguez gently prompted him to finish. Then a girl talked about her dad who drove trucks. Another kid's mom was a hairdresser. Simple presentations, sweet in their earnestness. Then Emma walked to the front. She was small for 7, with Ryan's dark hair and eyes that took in everything. She carried a poster board covered in photos and drawings, handled it carefully like it was precious. "My name is Emma Cole," she began, her voice clear and confident. "My dad runs a place called Cole Education Solutions. It helps kids learn to read." She turned the poster around. Photos of the center, kids in reading groups, volunteers helping with homework. Emma had drawn decorative borders around each image in different colors. "Reading is really important," Emma continued, "because if you can't read, you can't learn other stuff. My dad says reading opens doors, which I think means it helps you do things you want to do. Like I want to be a marine biologist and you need to read a lot of science books for that." A few kids giggled. Emma ignored them. "My dad started the center because when he was little, his family didn't have much money and the library helped him learn things. Now he wants to help other kids the same way. He works really hard and sometimes he's tired, but he says it's worth it because kids matter." Victoria felt something tighten in her chest. "We almost had to close the center because we didn't have enough money," Emma said. But then Ms. Hale, she's here today. Hi, Ms. Hale. She bought Dad's company and kept all the programs running. So now more kids can learn to read, and that's good. Emma pointed at Victoria, and suddenly 20 pairs of 7-year-old eyes turned to stare at her. Victoria felt heat creeping up her neck. Ms. Hale is really rich, and as Emma announced with the casual honesty of children. Dad says she's a billionaire, which means she has more money than we can even imagine. But she used some of it to help kids, so even though I've never met a billionaire before, I think she's probably a good person. The teacher looked like she was trying not to laugh. Ryan had his hand over his mouth. Anyway, that's what my dad does. Questions? Several hands shot up. Emma called on a boy in the front row. Does your dad make a lot of money? No, we're not rich like Ms. Hale. But Dad says money isn't everything, which I think he only says because we don't have that much. More laughter. Miss Rodriguez intervened gently. Thank you, Emma. That was a wonderful presentation. Let's give her a round of applause. The kids clapped. Emma returned to her seat looking satisfied with herself. The presentations continued, but Victoria couldn't focus. She kept thinking about what Emma had said. The simple declaration that Victoria was probably a good person because she'd helped kids. The matter-of-fact way she'd laid out their financial situation without shame or embarrassment. After the last presentation, Ms. Rodriguez invited parents to stay for snack time. Victoria started to make excuses to leave, but Emma appeared at her side. You have to stay, Emma insisted. We have goldfish crackers and apple slices. The crackers are the good kind, not the weird organic ones. I should probably get back to work. But you just got here. Don't you want to see my reading journal? I wrote 3 pages yesterday about dolphins. Victoria looked at Ryan for help, but he just shrugged. Emma's very persuasive. Please? Emma's eyes were wide and hopeful. I never get to show my stuff to billionaires. Okay, show me the journal. Emma dragged her to a small reading corner and produced a notebook covered in dolphin stickers. The handwriting was large and uneven, but the enthusiasm was obvious. 3 pages about dolphin communication, their social structures, how they sleep. This is really detailed, Victoria said, genuinely impressed. I like facts. Dad says I ask too many questions, but I think there's no such thing as too many questions. Like, did you know dolphins have names? They make specific whistle sounds for each other. Isn't that cool? That's very cool. What do you like, besides money, I mean? The question stumped Victoria. I don't know. I like building things. Companies, mostly. That sounds boring. Emma, Ryan said, appearing behind them. That's rude. But it does sound boring. Building companies isn't like building with Legos or making a fort. It's just paperwork and meetings, right? Mostly, yes, Victoria admitted. Then why do you do it? Because I'm good at it, and it makes me successful. But does it make you happy? Victoria felt like she'd been punched. This 7-year-old had just asked the same question Ryan had asked in the park, and Victoria still didn't have a good answer. Sometimes, she said finally. Only sometimes isn't very good, Emma observed. You should do things that make you happy most of the time. That's what Dad says anyway. Except he also makes me eat vegetables, which definitely don't make me happy, so maybe he's a hypocrite. Hypocrite is a big word, Victoria said, trying not to smile. I like big words. Dad teaches me new ones. Last week I learned ambiguous and perseverance and onomatopoeia, which is my favorite because it sounds weird. Ryan put his hand on Emma's shoulder. Why don't you go get some goldfish before they're all gone? Okay, bye, Ms. Hale. Thanks for coming to my presentation. Emma bounded off toward the snack table. Victoria watched her go, feeling off balance. Sorry, Ryan said. She has no filter. No, she's great. Smart, curious, a little terrifying. That's Emma. She'll ask you the hardest questions you've ever faced without even realizing they're hard. Does it make you happy? Victoria repeated quietly. I've been asking myself that all week, and I still can't answer it. Maybe that's the answer right there. They stood in the back of the classroom watching kids devour goldfish crackers and chase each other around desks. Miss Rodriguez was trying to maintain some semblance of order with limited success. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. And you have to be honest. Okay? Why are you helping me? Really? It's not your job to fix my existential crisis. You have enough to deal with. Ryan considered the question. Because I recognize where you are. That place where you've achieved everything you thought you wanted and realized it's not enough. I was there after Sarah died. Just going through motions, checking boxes, existing, but not living. And someone helped me find my way back. I guess I'm paying it forward. Who helped you? A grief counselor I saw for about 6 months. She was the one who suggested I start the literacy program, actually. Said I needed purpose beyond just surviving Emma's childhood. Something that made me feel useful to the world. Did it work? Eventually. It wasn't instant or easy. I had to figure out what mattered to me, what I wanted my life to look like, who I wanted to be as a person and a father. That took time and a lot of uncomfortable self-examination. I don't know if I'm ready for uncomfortable self-examination. You cried in a public park last week. I think you're already there. Victoria laughed despite herself. That was humiliating. That was brave. You let yourself feel something real. That's the first step. Emma ran back over, her hands full of goldfish crackers. Dad, can Ms. Hale come to dinner with us? Please? We're having spaghetti, and she probably never has regular spaghetti because she's so fancy. Victoria started to decline automatically, but Ryan cut her off. Would you want to? No pressure, but Emma makes a valid point about the spaghetti. I make the sauce from scratch, Emma added proudly. Well, Dad makes it, but I help. I put in the oregano and stir. Victoria knew she should say no. She had work to do, calls to return, a life that didn't include random Friday dinners with near strangers. But Emma was looking at her with such hope, and Ryan's expression was open and welcoming, and Victoria realized she didn't want to go back to her empty penthouse. Okay, she heard herself say. I'd like that. Emma cheered and ran off to tell her friend she was having dinner with a billionaire. Ryan smiled. Fair warning, our apartment is small and definitely not fancy, and Emma will probably interrogate you about your entire life story. I think I can handle it. We'll see about that. They left the school together after snack time ended. Victoria followed Ryan's old Honda through South Side streets to a modest apartment building that had seen better decades. The neighborhood was working class, not dangerous, but definitely not gentrified. Kids played on stoops, old men sat on folding chairs talking, someone was grilling somewhere nearby, and the smell made Victoria's stomach growl. Ryan's apartment was on the 3rd floor. Small, like he'd warned, maybe 800 square feet total, but it was full of life in a way Victoria's penthouse could never be. Books everywhere, Emma's artwork covering the refrigerator, photos on every surface. Lived-in furniture that didn't match but somehow worked together. Sorry about the mess, Ryan said, moving a stack of papers off the couch. We weren't expecting company. It's fine, it's nice. Emma had already disappeared into what Victoria assumed was her bedroom. She emerged moments later wearing a dinosaur apron. I'm ready to cook. The kitchen was tiny, barely room for 2 people, let alone 3, but Emma didn't seem to notice the cramped quarters as she pulled a step stool to the counter and started giving instructions. Dad, you do the garlic. Ms. Hale, you can open the tomato cans. I'll get the spices. Victoria found herself taking orders from a 7-year-old, opening industrial-sized cans of crushed tomatoes while Ryan minced garlic, and Emma carefully measured oregano and basil. More oregano, he must, Emma instructed. Dad always uses too little. I use the exact amount the recipe calls for, Ryan protested. The recipe is wrong. Ms. Hale, don't you think recipes should have more flavor? I don't actually cook, Victoria admitted. I eat out or order delivery. Emma looked horrified. Every night? Don't you get tired of restaurant food? I don't really think about it. That's sad. Cooking is fun. Watch, I'll show you how to stir the sauce without splashing. For the next hour, Victoria learned how to make spaghetti sauce under the exacting supervision of a 2nd grader. Emma corrected her stirring technique, made her taste test for seasoning, explained the difference between dried and fresh herbs with the authority of someone who'd been cooking for decades instead of helping occasionally. Ryan moved around them easily, boiling pasta, making salad, setting the small table in the corner of the living room. He and Emma had an effortless rhythm, communicating in half sentences and knowing looks that came from years of being a team. Victoria felt like an intruder at first. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong in this tiny apartment with its mismatched furniture and refrigerator covered in spelling tests. But slowly, something shifted. Emma's running commentary on everything from dinosaur facts to why her teacher's grading system was unfair. Ryan's quiet competence as he moved through familiar tasks. The warm smell of garlic and tomatoes filling the small space. It felt like home in a way Victoria's expensive penthouse never had. When dinner was ready, they squeezed around the small table. Emma said a simple thanks for the food and the people sharing it. Not a prayer exactly, just acknowledgement. Then she dove into her spaghetti with enthusiasm. "So, Ms. Hale," Emma said between bites, "Dad told me you grew up in foster care. What's that like?" "Emma," Ryan said sharply, "that's private." "It's okay," Victoria said, surprising herself. "Foster care is complicated. You live with different families who are supposed to take care of you, but sometimes they do it because they get money from the state, not because they actually want kids around." "That sounds lonely." "It was. Very lonely." "Is that why you're rich now? Because you wanted to make sure you'd never be poor and lonely again?" Victoria set down her fork. "How old are you again?" 7 3/4. "Why?" "Because you ask questions that most adults wouldn't dare ask. Dad says I'm precocious. That means too smart for my age, but in an annoying way." "I said you were perceptive," Ryan corrected, "and to maybe think before asking personal questions." "But Ms. Hale said it was okay." "Right, Ms. Hale?" "It's okay," Victoria confirmed. "And yes, you're probably right. I wanted to make sure I'd never depend on anyone else, never be in a position where someone could send me away or decide I wasn't worth keeping. But now you have lots of money and you're still lonely, so maybe the money didn't fix the problem." Ryan looked mortified. "Emma, that's enough." "What?" "I'm just saying what's obvious. Ms. Hale came to my school presentation and then to our apartment for dinner instead of doing billionaire stuff. People don't do that unless they're lonely and want friends." Victoria laughed, really laughed, the kind that came from deep in her chest and made her eyes water. "You're absolutely right. I am lonely, and I do want friends." Emma beamed. "Good. Then we can be friends. I've never had a billionaire friend before. This is exciting. I've never had a 7-year-old friend before." 7 3/4, Emma corrected. The 3/4 is important. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Victoria her room. It was small, barely fit a twin bed and a desk, but every inch was covered with evidence of Emma's interests. Marine biology posters, books about animals, a collection of rocks arranged by color, drawings of impossible underwater creatures. "This is my favorite place in the whole world," Emma announced. "I know it's tiny, but it's mine. Dad said when I'm older, we can maybe get a bigger apartment, but I like this one. It feels safe." Victoria sat on the edge of Emma's bed, looking around at the controlled chaos. "What makes it feel safe?" "I don't know. It's just, Dad's right outside. All my stuff is here. I know where everything is. When Mom died, we moved a lot for a while, and I hated it. But we've been here for 3 years, and it feels like home now." "Do you remember your mom?" "A little bit. I remember she smelled like vanilla, and she sang all the time, even when she didn't know the words. Dad has pictures of her everywhere, so I won't forget. Sometimes I'm scared I'm forgetting anyway." "I'm sure your dad makes sure you remember." "He tries, but it's hard because talking about her makes him sad. I can see it even when he tries to hide it. So sometimes I don't ask questions because I don't want to make him sadder." Victoria felt her heart break a little. "That's very thoughtful of you." "I try to be good because Dad works so hard. He's always tired and worried about money and stuff. I heard him on the phone with Grandma last month saying he didn't know how we'd make rent. So I try not to ask for things or be difficult." "Emma, you're 7 3/4. 7 3/4. You shouldn't have to worry about rent or making things easier for your dad. That's his job as the parent." "I know, but I love him and I want to help. Don't you want to help people you love?" "I don't really have people I love." Emma looked at her with something that might have been pity. "That's really sad, Ms. Hale. Everyone should have people they love." "You can call me Victoria. Ms. Hale makes me feel like I'm at work." "Okay, Victoria, do you want to see my rock collection? I have 47 different kinds organized by color and hardness." Victoria spent the next 20 minutes learning about sedimentary versus igneous rocks, proper classification techniques, and Emma's dream of someday visiting a real geological dig site. The kid's enthusiasm was infectious, her knowledge impressive for someone so young. When they returned to the living room, Ryan had cleaned up dinner and was working on a laptop at the small table. He looked up when they entered. Let me guess. Rock collection? She has 47 different specimens, Victoria said. That's genuinely impressive. Wait until she starts on the shells. We have 3 shoeboxes full organized by phylum. Emma yawned hugely. What time is it? Almost 8. Bedtime soon. But Victoria just got here. Victoria has her own life and probably needs to get home. Victoria checked her phone. It was 7:45. She'd been here for almost 4 hours and had completely lost track of time. There were 17 missed calls, 36 unread emails, 3 texts from Peter asking where she was. She should leave, should go back to her real life where she was important and needed and absolutely not sitting in a cramped apartment learning about igneous rocks. I should go, she said. Emma's face fell. Will you come back? If your dad says it's okay. Dad, is it okay? Ryan met Victoria's eyes over Emma's head. Something passed between them, an understanding maybe, or just recognition that this strange friendship forming between them mattered to all 3 of them in different ways. It's okay, he said. You're welcome here any time. Emma hugged Victoria suddenly, fiercely, her small arms surprisingly strong. Thank you for coming to my presentation and for dinner and for being my friend, even though you're a billionaire and could probably be friends with way cooler people. Victoria hugged her back, feeling completely out of her depth, but also strangely right. Thank you for inviting me. This was the best Friday night I've had in years. Really, but we just ate spaghetti and looked at rocks. Exactly. After Emma went to brush her teeth, Ryan walked Victoria to the door. Sorry if that was overwhelming, he said. Emma gets attached quickly. I liked it, all of it. Your daughter is amazing. She is. She's also 7 and doesn't understand appropriate boundaries with powerful business executives. Maybe that's a good thing. Everyone else in my life treats me like I'm made of glass or money. Emma just treats me like a person. Is that what you need? To be treated like a person? I think it might be. They stood in the doorway, close enough that Victoria could see the exhaustion in Ryan's eyes, the worry lines that came from single parenthood and financial stress and carrying too much responsibility. Can I ask you something? She said. And you have to be honest. That seems to be our thing now. Do you think I'm using you, being around you and Emma, to feel less empty? Because if that's what this is, I should stop. I don't want to be that person who takes without giving back. Ryan was quiet for a moment. I think you're lonely, and you've found people who make you feel less lonely. That's not using us. That's just being human. We all need connection. But what do you get out of this? What does Emma get out of having me around? Emma gets to ask a billionaire about dolphins and rock formations without anyone telling her she's being inappropriate. He paused, considering. I get to remember that not everyone with money is only interested in profit margins. That some people actually care about doing right by kids, even when it's not financially optimal. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised how many people don't clear it. Emma's voice called from the bathroom. Dad, I can't find my toothbrush. It's in the cup by the sink, Ryan called back. Then, to Victoria, I should go supervise. She once used hand soap instead of toothpaste because she wasn't paying attention. Thank you for tonight, for letting me be part of this. Thank you for showing up, not just tonight, but to Emma's presentation, to the center, to all of it. You didn't have to care, and you do. That matters. Victoria left feeling lighter than she had in years. The drive back to her penthouse felt longer than usual, the building colder, her apartment emptier. But instead of the crushing loneliness she usually felt, there was something else now. Hope, maybe. Or just the memory of Emma's laughter and Ryan's quiet kindness and spaghetti sauce that tasted better than anything from a 5-star restaurant. She changed into pajamas, poured a glass of wine, and sat at her desk to deal with the 17 missed calls and 36 emails. But first, she opened a new document and typed, "Things that make me happy." Then she stared at the blank page for a long time. Finally, she wrote, Dinner with Ryan and Emma. Emma's rock collection. Being treated like a person instead of a function. Helping kids learn to read. Watching Emma present at Career Day. Small things, simple things. Things that had nothing to do with business or success or accumulating wealth. Things that felt real. Victoria saved the document and returned to her emails. But for the first time in a decade, work felt like an interruption instead of the entire point. The next Tuesday, she showed up at the center with no agenda beyond wanting to be there. Ryan looked surprised to see her. No scheduled site visit? Do I need one? I guess not. You own the place. That's not why I'm here. Why are you here? Victoria wasn't sure how to explain that she'd spent 4 days thinking about dinner at his apartment, about Emma's boundless curiosity, about feeling like she belonged somewhere for the first time since she was a child. Because I want to be, she said simply. Ryan smiled. Then come on. We're starting a new reading group for kindergarteners. Emma's helping. She takes her assistant teaching role very seriously. They walked into chaos. 15, 5, and 6-year-olds all talking at once, and Emma trying to establish order with limited success. Everyone needs to sit in a circle, Emma was saying. A circle is round, not a blob shape. Victoria found herself laughing again, and thinking that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to figure out what happiness looked like. It looked like this: messy and imperfect and nothing she could have planned or optimized or built through strategic acquisitions. It looked like belonging. Over the next 3 weeks, Victoria fell into a pattern that would have baffled anyone who'd known her a month ago. Tuesdays and Thursdays at the center became non-negotiable. She cleared her calendar, ignored Peter's increasingly concerned questions, and spent her afternoons watching kids learn to read, helping with administrative tasks Ryan never had time for, and learning what it meant to care about something beyond quarterly returns. Emma started texting her. Actual text from Ryan's phone, full of misspellings and excessive exclamation points and random facts about marine life. Victoria found herself responding between board meetings, explaining investment strategies to a 7-year-old who wanted to know if dolphins could have retirement accounts. They should, Emma texted one Wednesday afternoon. Dolphins work hard their whole lives. They deserve financial security in old age. Victoria smiled at her phone during a conference call about healthcare acquisitions. Her VP of operations noticed. Good news? He asked during a break. Just a friend, Victoria said, which was true, but also completely inadequate to explain why texts from a second grader made her happier than closing a $50 million deal. The following Friday, Ryan called her. Emma wants to know if you're busy Sunday. She has a dance recital, and apparently you need to be there. I don't know anything about dance recitals, neither do I, but I've been attending them for 3 years. You sit in uncomfortable chairs, watch 7-year-olds stumble through choreography, and clap enthusiastically. It's actually kind of great. Okay, text me the details. You're sure? You don't have to just because Emma asked. She gets demanding sometimes. I want to come. Silence on the other end, then, okay, thanks, she'll be excited. Sunday afternoon found Victoria in a high school auditorium that smelled like industrial cleaner and teenage anxiety. The seats were exactly as uncomfortable as Ryan had warned. He was already there, saving her a spot in the 3rd row. You made it, he said, looking genuinely pleased. I said I would. I know, but I also know you probably had better things to do than watch amateur ballet. Honestly, I didn't. My Sundays are usually just catching up on work I didn't finish during the week. That sounds depressing. It is. I'm realizing that now. The recital started 20 minutes late. 40 kids in various states of costume readiness paraded across the stage in routines that were more chaos than choreography. Parents recorded everything on phones, proud and emotional over performances that were objectively messy. Emma's group came out midway through, 8 girls in tutus, ages 6 to 8, attempting a routine that involved a lot of arm movements and questionable timing. Emma was in the back row, concentrating so hard her tongue stuck out slightly. She missed several cues, bumped into another girl during a turn, nearly fell during the finale. Ryan was filming the whole thing with a huge smile. When Emma took her bow, Victoria found herself clapping harder than she'd ever clapped for anything in her life. Harder than she'd clapped when she closed her first major deal. Harder than she'd clapped at industry award ceremonies where she'd won accolades. This mattered more. Watching a 7-year-old be brave enough to perform even when she wasn't perfect. Watching her beam at the audience like she'd just conquered something impossible. After the recital, Emma ran to them still in her tutu, face flushed with excitement. "Did you see me? I messed up the turns, but I didn't fall." "You were amazing," Ryan said, hugging her. "Victoria, did you like it?" "It was the best dance recital I've ever been to." "It's the only dance recital you've ever been to, right?" "Still the best." Emma grinned. "Can we get ice cream? Dad always gets me ice cream after recitals." They ended up at a small shop 2 blocks from the auditorium, crowded with other recital families. Emma ordered chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Ryan got vanilla. Victoria surprised herself by ordering strawberry. "I didn't think billionaires ate regular ice cream," Emma observed, attacking her cone with enthusiasm. "Why not?" "I don't know. I thought you probably had fancy ice cream delivered from France or something. I usually just skip dessert." "That's sad. Ice cream is important. Right, Dad?" "Ice cream is crucial, son," Ryan agreed, "especially after dance recitals where you nailed the arm movements even if the turns were rough." "I'm working on the turns. Miss Patricia says I think too much instead of just doing it." Miss Patricia is wise. They sat outside despite the November chill, Emma chattering about her recital, her upcoming science project, a book she'd just finished about octopuses. Victoria listened, contributed occasionally, mostly just absorbed the normalcy of it all. Ryan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "Sorry, I need to take this. It's Marcus. Emma, stay with Victoria." He stepped away. Emma immediately scooted closer to Victoria. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you like my dad?" Victoria nearly choked on her ice cream. "What? Like as more than just a business person, do you like him?" "Emma, why are you asking that?" "Because he likes you, I can tell. He smiles different when you're around, and he checks his phone a lot to see if you texted. And last night I heard him tell Uncle Marcus that he didn't know what to do about you." Victoria's heart was doing something complicated. "What did Marcus say?" "I couldn't hear all of it, but something about not getting hurt again and being careful. But I don't think you'd hurt Dad. You seem nice. Mostly." "Mostly?" "Well, you're still kind of scary sometimes. Like when you're on the phone for work, your voice gets really cold. But then when you're with us, you're different, warmer. I like that version better." "I like that version better too." "So do you. Like him?" Victoria looked across the parking lot where Ryan was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, clearly dealing with some crisis. Even stressed, even from a distance, watching him made her feel something she couldn't quite name. "I think I might," she admitted quietly. Emma smiled like she'd won something. "Good, because Dad's been sad for a long time, since Mom died. He tries to hide it, but I know. And lately he seems less sad. I think that's because of you." "Emma, I don't know how to do this. Relationships, feelings, any of it. I'm probably the worst possible person for your dad to care about." "Why?" "Because I'm broken in ways I don't know how to fix. I spent my whole life learning how to not need anyone. I don't know how to suddenly need someone now." "Maybe you don't have to know. Maybe you just have to try." Ryan returned before Victoria could respond. "Sorry about that. Program funding crisis. Nothing urgent?" "Everything okay?" Victoria asked. "Yeah, just one of our grant organizations restructuring their priorities. We might lose some funding in January. I'll figure it out." "How much?" 40,000. It's manageable. Probably. Victoria made a mental note. 40,000 was nothing to her, pocket change, but to Ryan it was clearly significant. She could write a check right now and solve the problem. But something stopped her. The knowledge that Ryan wouldn't want that he'd see it as charity or pity, not help, that throwing money at problems was exactly what had kept her isolated for so long. She needed to be smarter than that. The following Tuesday, Victoria arrived at the center to find Ryan in his office, surrounded by grant applications and budget spreadsheets. He looked exhausted. "Bad day?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, rubbed his eyes. "Just trying to figure out how to replace that funding. We have 3 applications out, but nothing guaranteed. And we need to know by January or we'll have to cut staff." "Which staff?" "Probably Sarah. She's the most recent hire, which kills me because she's incredible at her job and we need her, but I can't afford to keep everyone if we lose the grant. Victoria sat down across from him. What if there was another option? What do you mean? What if Hale Ventures increased our investment in coal education? Not a grant, a strategic expansion of our existing commitment. We fund the gap, you keep Sarah, everyone wins. Ryan set down his pen. Victoria, no. Why not? It makes business sense. Stable staffing leads to better program outcomes, which increases our long-term viability. Stop. Just stop. His voice was gentle but firm. I know what you're doing, and I appreciate it, but I can't take money from you to solve my problems. It's not taking. It's a legitimate business investment. It's you trying to fix things because that's what you do. But I need to handle this myself. This is my company, my responsibility. It's our company now. I own it. You own it on paper, but it's still my mission, my vision, my problem to solve. If I can't sustain the programs without you writing checks every time we hit a rough patch, then I haven't built something sustainable. I've just built something dependent on your generosity. Victoria felt frustration rising. So what, you'd rather fire Sarah than accept help? I'd rather find a solution that doesn't involve my... He stopped abruptly. Your what? Nothing. Forget it. Ryan, what were you going to say? He sighed. I was going to say I'd rather find a solution that doesn't involve my, whatever you are, writing checks to bail me out, because that's not a healthy dynamic, and we both know it. Whatever I am? Yeah, because I don't know what we are. Business associates? Friends? Something else I'm afraid to name because it probably goes nowhere good? The question hung between them. Victoria felt her chest tighten. I don't know either, she said quietly. I just know that when I'm here, I feel less empty. And when I'm not here, I count hours until I can come back. And I haven't felt that about anything or anyone in my entire life. Ryan's expression softened. Victoria, and yes, my instinct is to throw money at problems because that's what I know how to do. But you're right that it's not healthy. So tell me what would actually help. What can I do that isn't just writing a check? He thought about it. Help me brainstorm new revenue streams. Your business brain, not your checkbook. Help me figure out how to make this sustainable long-term without relying on grants that could disappear. Okay, I can do that. They spent the next 2 hours going through Cole Education's finances with fresh eyes. Victoria asked hard questions about program costs, revenue potential, scalability. Ryan provided data, explained community needs, defended certain expenses while acknowledging others could be optimized. By the time they finished, they had the outline of a plan. A corporate partnership program where local businesses sponsored reading groups in exchange for tax benefits and community goodwill. A sliding scale tuition model for families who could afford to pay something but not private tutoring rates. A grant writing service where they'd help other nonprofits in exchange for a percentage of awarded funding. None of it solved the immediate problem, but it created a path forward that didn't depend on Victoria's personal intervention. This could actually work, Ryan said, looking at their notes. It'll take time to implement, but yeah, this could work. So we do this together. I provide strategic guidance, you provide operational expertise. Real partnership. Real partnership, he agreed. Their eyes met across the desk. Victoria felt something shift between them, some unspoken acknowledgement that this was more than business, that they were building something together that mattered in ways neither of them quite knew how to articulate. Emma asked me if I liked you, Victoria said suddenly. At the ice cream shop, after the recital. Ryan's eyebrows went up. What did you tell her? That I thought I might, and now she thinks I'm going to make you less sad. I'm not sad. You are. She sees it. I see it. You've been sad since your wife died and you've learned to function around it, but it's still there. Ryan looked away. I don't know how to not be sad sometimes. She was my person. We were going to grow old together, raise Emma, build a whole life. And then one morning she collapsed while making pancakes, and by that night she was gone. I didn't get to say goodbye. Didn't get to tell her I loved her one more time. Just gone. I'm sorry. It's been 4 years. I should be over it by now. There's no timeline for grief. Maybe not, but I'm tired of being the sad widower, tired of Emma worrying about me, tired of carrying this around everywhere I go. Victoria moved around the desk, pulled a chair next to his. What if you didn't have to carry it alone? What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to do this, any of this, relationships or emotions or being vulnerable. But I want to try. With you, if you'll let me. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. You're sure? Because I'm a mess, Victoria. I have a kid, a struggling business, emotional baggage from here to next Tuesday. I'm not the kind of person billionaire CEOs usually date. I don't usually date anyone. And I don't want usual. I want real. You're the most real person I've ever met. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised. He smiled slightly. Emma's going to lose her mind when I tell her. Do we have to tell her? Can we just, I don't know, see how this goes without 7-year-old commentary? Have you met Emma? She already knows. She's probably planning our wedding. Victoria laughed despite her nerves. Slow down. I'm still figuring out how to be a person, let alone someone's partner. Fair enough, so what do we do? I have no idea. What do people do? Usually they go on dates. Dinner, movies, normal stuff. I can do dinner. I'm terrible at movies. I talk through them analyzing the business decisions of fictional characters. That actually sounds entertaining. It's annoying. Ask anyone who's ever made the mistake of watching a corporate thriller with me. Ryan reached for her hand. The contact was electric, terrifying, perfect. How about we figure it out as we go? No pressure, no timeline. Just see what happens. Victoria laced her fingers through his. Okay, but I'm going to be bad at this. I'll probably prioritize work at inappropriate times and forget important dates and struggle with emotional availability. And I'll probably be overprotective of Emma and stressed about money and occasionally withdrawn when grief hits. We're both disasters. Maybe disasters can work together. Maybe they can. They sat like that for a while, hands linked, neither quite sure what they were doing but willing to try anyway. The center was quiet around them, just the hum of the old heating system and distant traffic sounds. Victoria's phone buzzed. Peter, asking where she was, reminding her about a conference call she was missing. She silenced it without looking. You're going to get in trouble, Ryan said. Probably. Worth it, though. Is it? Victoria looked at him, really looked. Tired eyes, worried expression, rough edges everywhere. Nothing polished or perfect or easy. Everything that should have scared her away. Everything that made her want to stay. Yeah, she said. It really is. The next 2 weeks blurred together in ways Victoria had never experienced. Work continued, meetings, deals, board presentations, but it felt like background noise. The real life was happening elsewhere. Dinner at Ryan's apartment twice a week, teaching Emma about investment portfolios while they made tacos. Long phone calls after Emma went to bed, talking about everything and nothing. Ryan visiting her office for the first time and looking completely overwhelmed by the opulence. Victoria realizing how absurd her life looked from the outside. They didn't tell anyone they were together. Not officially, but people noticed anyway. Peter cornered her after a board meeting. Are you seeing someone? Why would you ask that? Because you're different. Distracted, but happier. You smile at your phone. You actually left at 5:30 yesterday. I have a life outside work now. Is that a problem? No, it's good. Who is it? Do I know them? Victoria considered lying, but she was tired of hiding. Ryan Cole, from the education acquisition. Peter's eyes widened. You're struggling nonprofit founder? Victoria, that's complicated. I know. I was going to say surprising, but okay. Complicated works too. Don't make it a thing. Too late. This is absolutely a thing. At the center, Sarah figured it out when she walked in on them laughing over budget projections, standing closer than was strictly professional. Oh, Sarah said. Oh, this is happening. Nothing's happening, Ryan said too quickly. Ryan, she's literally holding your hand. Something is very much happening. Victoria didn't let go. Is this going to be a problem? For me? No. For you too? Maybe. This is a workplace relationship with a massive power imbalance. Victoria literally owns this company. I'm aware of the optics. As long as you're aware, I like you, Victoria. You've been good to us, but if you hurt him, I know, you'll make my life difficult. I was going to say I'll be very disappointed, but sure, difficult works too. Emma was the only one who seemed unsurprised. When Victoria showed up for movie night at their apartment the following Friday, Emma just grinned. "Finally," she said. "I've been waiting for you guys to figure it out." "Figure what out?" Ryan asked innocently. "That you like each other. It was so obvious. Even Jeremy noticed, and he's only 5. "Who's Jeremy?" "My friend from the center. He said you look at Victoria the way his dad looks at birthday cake, which I think means you really like her." Victoria tried not to laugh. "That's quite an observation." "I'm perceptive. It's one of my best qualities." They watched a documentary about coral reefs. Emma narrated the entire thing with additional facts she'd learned from her own research. Ryan and Victoria sat on the couch together, not quite touching, but aware of each other in ways that made Victoria's heart race. After Emma went to bed, they stayed on the couch in the dim light from the kitchen. "This is nice," Victoria said quietly. "Yeah?" "Yeah. Ordinary in the best way. I spent so long thinking ordinary was something to escape. But this feels like home?" "Like home," she agreed. Ryan shifted to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "What do you want from this?" "From us? Because I need to know we're on the same page before we go further." Victoria took a breath. "Honestly, I don't know. I've never wanted a relationship before, never saw the point. But with you, I want to come home to someone. I want to hear about someone's day and actually care. I want to be part of something beyond just myself and my ambitions. I want to matter to someone for who I am, not what I can provide. You already matter, to me and to Emma. I know, and that terrifies me. Because what if I screw this up? What if I'm too damaged or too selfish or too focused on work? What if I hurt you both without meaning to? What if you don't? What if this actually works? I don't know how to believe that." Ryan took her hand. "Then start small. Believe we can make it through this week, then next week, then the week after. Don't worry about forever. Just worry about now." "I can do now." "Then that's enough." He kissed her, soft and careful, like she might break. Like he might break. Like they were both made of fragile things they'd been protecting for so long. Victoria kissed him back. Let herself feel it fully, instead of analyzing or strategizing or trying to control the outcome. Just felt. It was terrifying. It was also the most honest thing she'd done in years. When they pulled apart, Ryan smiled. "That was, yeah. Want to do it again?" "Definitely." They stayed up too late, talking and kissing and slowly learning how to be together. How to navigate this strange new territory where business and personal collided. How to be vulnerable without completely falling apart. Eventually, Victoria had to leave. She drove home in the early morning hours, her head full of Ryan's laugh and Emma's enthusiasm and the feeling of being part of something real. Her penthouse felt even emptier than usual, but instead of the crushing loneliness, she felt something else. Anticipation. The knowledge that this wasn't where she belonged anymore. She belonged with them. The thought should have scared her more than it did. 3 days later, everything fell apart. Victoria was in her office when Ryan called, his voice tight with panic. "Emma's in the hospital. Her asthma. She couldn't breathe. They have her on oxygen, but they're saying she might need to stay overnight for observation." "Which hospital?" "University of Chicago Medical, but you don't have to, I'm already leaving." She made it to the hospital in 20 minutes, found Ryan in the pediatric emergency wing looking completely wrecked. He stood when he saw her. "You came." "Of course I came. How is she?" "Stabilized. The attack was bad, worse than usual. They're running tests to see if something triggered it. I keep thinking, if I'd been there sooner, if I'd noticed the symptoms earlier. Ryan, this isn't your fault. I was at the center. I was working on those revenue proposals, and she was at aftercare, and no one noticed she was struggling until she collapsed. What kind of father doesn't notice his kid can't breathe?" Victoria grabbed his shoulders. "The kind who's doing everything alone and can't be everywhere at once. This isn't on you." A doctor appeared. "Mr. Cole?" Emma's asking for you. Ryan looked at Victoria. Come with me? Are you sure? Please? They followed the doctor to a room where Emma lay in a hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, looking small and scared. But when she saw them, her face brightened. Victoria, you're here too. Hey kiddo, how are you feeling? Tired, and my chest hurts. But the doctor says I'm going to be okay. I just have to stay overnight to make sure. Ryan sat beside her bed, took her hand. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. It's okay, Dad. You were working. The aftercare lady called the ambulance super fast. Still, I should have been there. You can't always be there. That's what you tell me when you have to work, remember? That sometimes adults have to do their jobs even when they want to be other places? Victoria watched Ryan's face crumple slightly. He was trying to hold it together for Emma, but the fear was obvious. Can I talk to your dad for a minute? Victoria asked Emma. We'll be right outside. Okay, don't go far though. In the hallway, Ryan finally let himself break. I can't do this. I can't be both parent and provider. I can't run the center and be there for every emergency. I'm failing at all of it. You're not failing. You're overwhelmed. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, my daughter is in the hospital because I was too busy with work to notice she needed me. Ryan, Emma has a chronic condition. Sometimes attacks happen regardless of what you do or don't notice. You can't control everything. But I should be able to control being there for her. That's basic parenting. Victoria took a breath. What if you didn't have to do it alone? What? What if I helped? Not with money, with actual presence. I could pick Emma up from school on days you can't. I could be the backup emergency contact. No. The word was flat, final. Why not? Because that's not your responsibility. Emma's my daughter, my responsibility. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. Victoria, we've been together for what, 3 weeks? And you want to jump into playing stepmom? That's not realistic. The word stepmom hit her like a slap. I wasn't saying, I just meant I could help. Be there, support you both. By doing what, exactly? Taking on parental duties you didn't sign up for? That's not fair to you. What if I want to? You don't know what you want. Ryan's voice rose, stress and fear making him sharp. You said it yourself. You don't know how to do relationships. You're still figuring out how to be a person. And now you want to add being a parent figure to that? To Emma, who already lost one mother and doesn't need to get attached to someone who might leave. The words hung into the hallway like a physical thing. Victoria felt herself pulling back, walls going up automatically. Is that what you think I'll do? Leave? I think you're a billionaire CEO who's never had to prioritize anyone but yourself. I think when this gets hard, and it will get hard, you'll realize your real life is back in that penthouse, not in a cramped apartment with a single dad and his sick kid. That's not fair. Fair or not, it's realistic. You've been playing at this for a few weeks, showing up when it's convenient, feeling good about helping the poor people. But this? He gestured toward Emma's room. This is the reality. Hospital rooms and medical bills I can barely afford, and a kid who needs more than I can give her. This isn't some project you can optimize and walk away from. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. You think that's what I'm doing? Playing? I think you're trying. I think you mean well. But I also think you don't understand what you're actually signing up for. And I can't let Emma get more attached to you until I know you're really in this. Not just until it stops being interesting or gets too complicated. So what are you saying? Ryan looked at her with exhausted, frightened eyes. I'm saying maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we need to step back and think about what we're actually doing here. You're ending this. I'm protecting my daughter. By pushing away everyone who tries to help? By not letting her get hurt again. She's already asking when you're moving in, Victoria. She thinks you're going to be her new mom. And I can't let her believe that if there's any chance you're going to realize this isn't what you want and leave. Victoria felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. I'm not leaving. You say that now, but when reality sets in, when you realize how much of yourself you'd have to give up to be part of this family, I don't think you can do it. and I'd rather end this now than watch you break Emma's heart later. What about your heart? Ryan's expression cracked. My heart's already broken. Has been for 4 years. I'm used to it. Victoria turned away before he could see her crying. I should go. Victoria, no, you're right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry I made you think I did. She walked toward the elevator, each step feeling impossible. Behind her, she heard Ryan say her name again, but she didn't turn around. In the parking garage, sitting in her car, Victoria finally let herself fall apart, sobbing the way she'd sobbed in the park weeks ago, but this time it wasn't relief, it was grief. She'd found something real, something that mattered, something that made her feel human, and she'd lost it before she'd fully learned how to hold it. Victoria didn't go to the center the following Tuesday or Thursday. She buried herself in work the way she always had when things got hard, scheduling back-to-back meetings, staying in the office until midnight, avoiding anything that might make her feel. Peter noticed immediately. You're doing the thing again. What thing? The thing where you work yourself to death to avoid dealing with emotions. What happened with Ryan? Nothing happened. We're just focusing on our respective priorities. That's corporate speak for you broke up. We weren't together long enough for it to be a breakup. But you're miserable anyway. Victoria didn't answer. She approved 3 new acquisitions that week, closed a major deal with a healthcare conglomerate, and gave a keynote speech at an industry conference. By every professional measure, she was crushing it. She was also completely empty again. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts from Emma. Where are you? Dad says you're busy, but are you coming back? I miss you. Did I do something wrong? Victoria stared at that last one until her vision blurred. Emma thought she'd done something wrong. This sweet, brilliant 7-year-old blamed herself for Victoria's absence. She typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally settling on, You didn't do anything wrong. I promise. I just need some time. Emma's response came immediately. Okay, but don't take too much time. Dad's sad again. Victoria put her phone down and returned to work. But Emma's words echoed. Dad's sad again. She'd done that. She'd let Ryan hope for something, let Emma get attached, and then proved him right by disappearing the second things got complicated. Friday afternoon, Sarah showed up at Victoria's office. Jordan tried to stop her, but Sarah pushed past. We need to talk, Sarah said, closing the door behind her. So, this isn't a good time. I don't care. Sit down. Victoria was so surprised by the command that she actually sat. Sarah remained standing, arms crossed. What the hell are you doing? Working, running my company, the usual. You're hiding, and meanwhile Ryan's a mess and Emma cries herself to sleep asking when you're coming back. Victoria felt the words like physical blows. Ryan told me to back off. He said, I didn't understand what I was signing up for. Because he was scared. His daughter was in the hospital, and he was terrified and he lashed out. You've never said something you regretted when you were scared? This is different. How? Because he was right. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what they need. And it's better for everyone if I step back now before I hurt them worse. Sarah leaned against the desk. Can I tell you what I see? I see a woman who spent her whole life protecting herself from abandonment by making sure she never needed anyone. Who built walls so high that no one could possibly climb them. And then she met a man and a kid who didn't try to climb. They just walked in through a door she didn't know she'd left unlocked. And now she's so terrified of losing them that she's slamming the door shut herself. Because at least that way, she's in control of when it ends. Victoria's throat felt tight. It's exactly what you're doing. You think you're protecting them, but really you're protecting yourself. And in the process, you're breaking Ryan's heart and devastating a 7-year-old who thinks you're the coolest person she's ever met. I'm not good for them. Says who? Ryan was drowning before you showed up. The center was failing, he was exhausted, Emma was worried about him constantly. Then you came along and everything changed. The programs are stable, Ryan has help, Emma has someone else who cares about her. You made their lives better, and they made yours better too. Don't throw that away because you're scared. I'm not scared. Victoria, you're terrified. I can see it from here. And suddenly Victoria was crying again, the tears she'd been holding back all week finally breaking through. What if I can't do it? What if I try and I fail and I hurt them anyway? Sarah's expression softened. She moved around the desk, pulled up a chair. What if you try and it works? What if you're actually capable of this and you just don't know it yet? I don't have any evidence I'm capable of it. Yes, you do. You showed up to Emma's career day even though you had important meetings. You came to her dance recital. You sat in a hospital hallway because Ryan needed you there. You've been showing up in all the ways that matter. That's what love looks like. Not perfection, just consistent presence. I don't know if I can be consistently present. My work is demanding. I have responsibilities. So does Ryan. He manages. You can too if you want to badly enough. What if I don't want to badly enough? What if I choose work over them when it matters? Then you fail, and you apologize and do better next time. That's how relationships work. You mess up, you fix it, you keep trying. No one expects you to be perfect. Victoria wiped her eyes. Ryan does. He needs someone who can be there for Emma without hesitation. Someone who knows how to be a parent. Ryan needs someone who loves them both enough to try. That's you, if you stop running long enough to see it. He said I was playing at this, that I'd realize it wasn't what I wanted and leave. He said that because he's scared too, because he lost his wife and he's terrified of losing someone else. You're both so busy protecting yourselves that you're destroying the thing you're trying to protect. Victoria looked at Sarah. What do I do? You go to them. You apologize for running. You tell them you're scared, but you want to try anyway. And then you show up consistently until they believe you mean it. What if Ryan won't forgive me? Then you keep showing up until he does, or until he tells you definitively to stop. But you don't make that decision for him by staying away. After Sarah left, Victoria sat in her office for a long time. The city sprawled below her, millions of people living their lives, and she'd never felt more separate from all of it. She pulled out her phone, looked at Emma's texts, looked at the document she'd started weeks ago. Things that make me happy. She'd added to it over the past month. Emma's laugh, Ryan's smile, the way the center felt alive with purpose. Spaghetti dinners, rock collections, dance recitals, being part of something that mattered more than profit. All of it involved them. She'd spent 30 years building an empire that left her empty. And in 6 weeks, a single father and his 7-year-old daughter had shown her what she'd been missing. Victoria made a decision. She grabbed her coat and left the office. Ignored Peter's questions, didn't answer her phone, just drove straight to Ryan's apartment building and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Still nothing. They're at the hospital, a voice said. Victoria turned to find an elderly woman in the hallway. The little girl, Emma. She's been back twice this week. Asthma trouble. Victoria's heart stopped. Which hospital? University of Chicago Medical, same as before. Victoria ran back to her car and drove too fast through evening traffic. She parked illegally and ran through the emergency entrance, found her way to the pediatric wing. Emma was in the same room as before. Through the window, Victoria could see her in the bed, oxygen tubes in place, looking small and tired. Ryan sat beside her, holding her hand, his head bowed like he was praying or just trying not to fall apart. Victoria stood outside the door for a long moment, gathering courage. Then she knocked softly. Ryan looked up. His expression cycled through surprise, confusion, something that might have been hope. "Can I come in?" Victoria asked. Emma's face lit up. "Victoria, you came back!" "Hey kiddo, how are you feeling?" "Not great. My asthma's being really annoying, but I'm glad you're here." Emma looked at her father. "Dad, Victoria's here." "I see that." Ryan's voice was careful, guarded. Victoria moved closer to the bed. "I'm sorry I stayed away. I was scared and I ran, and that wasn't fair to either of you." "It's okay," Emma said immediately. "Dad explained that sometimes adults need space when things are hard." "That's generous, but it's not okay. I promised to be your friend and then I disappeared. That was wrong. But you're here now. That's what matters." Victoria looked at Ryan over Emma's head. His expression was unreadable. "Can we talk?" she asked, "after Emma falls asleep?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, we can talk." They sat on opposite sides of Emma's bed, making conversation about school and books, and anything neutral while Emma grew drowsier. The medication was kicking in, making her tired. "Victoria?" Emma's voice was getting soft. "Are you staying? Or are you leaving again?" The question cut deep. "I'm staying. If you'll let me." "Good. I missed you. Dad did too, even though he tried to pretend he didn't." "Emma," Ryan said quietly. "What?" "You did. You looked at your phone like 100 times a day and you got sad when she didn't text back. Sleep, kiddo. We can talk about my phone habits later." Emma smiled drowsily. "Okay, but I'm glad Victoria's back." She drifted off within minutes. Ryan adjusted her blankets, checked her oxygen levels, made sure everything was positioned right. The familiar motions of a parent who'd done this too many times. "Let's go to the waiting room," he said finally. They walked down the hallway in silence. The waiting room was empty this late, just harsh fluorescent lights and uncomfortable chairs and magazines from 6 months ago. Ryan sat, looked at his hands. "Why are you here, Victoria?" "Because I was wrong. Because I ran when I should have stayed. Because I can't stop thinking about you and Emma and how empty everything feels without you both. And next time something gets hard, next time Emma ends up in the hospital or I make you mad or life gets complicated, I'll try to stay. I'll probably still mess up sometimes, but I'll try." Try isn't enough. Not for Emma. She's already lost her mother. I can't let her get attached to someone who might leave. "I know. You said that at the hospital last week, and you were right to be worried, because I didn't know if I could do this. I didn't know if I was capable of putting someone else first, of being there consistently, of being what you both needed." "And now you know?" Victoria took a breath. "No, I still don't know. But I want to find out, and I'm willing to do the work to figure it out instead of running away when it gets scary." "What changed?" "Sarah came to my office, told me I was letting fear make my decisions, that I was so scared of failing that I wasn't even trying, and she was right." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "I was scared too. When Emma couldn't breathe and I couldn't help her, all I could think was that I'm failing at everything. Failing as a parent, failing to keep the center running, failing to protect the people I care about. And then you offered to help and it felt like you were seeing all my failures and offering to fix them, which made me feel even more inadequate. I wasn't trying to fix you. I was trying to be there for you. I know, but I couldn't see that then. I just saw someone who had everything together trying to rescue someone who was drowning, and my pride couldn't handle it. Ryan, you're not drowning. You're keeping an entire organization running, raising an amazing kid, building something meaningful with limited resources. That's not failing. That's extraordinary. It doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels exhausting. Because you're doing it alone. What if you didn't have to? Victoria, I'm not talking about money or fixing things. I'm talking about partnership, real partnership, where we both show up, we both contribute, we both carry the weight. Where I help with Emma, not because you can't handle her, but because I want to be part of her life. Where you help me figure out how to be human again, because I genuinely don't know how. Where we're both a mess, but we're a mess together. Ryan's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I want that. I want it so badly. But I'm terrified of letting myself hope for it, and then watching it fall apart. Me too. I'm absolutely terrified. But I'm more scared of spending the rest of my life empty and alone, building empires that don't mean anything because I don't have anyone to share them with. What are you saying? Victoria moved to sit beside him, took his hand. I'm saying I love you, both of you. Emma, with her relentless curiosity and her big heart. You with your quiet strength and your commitment to things that matter. I love the life you've built even though it's hard. I love how you show up for people. I love that you called me on my loneliness instead of ignoring it. I love that you make me want to be better than I've ever been. Victoria, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. I know I'm a disaster at relationships, and you have every reason not to trust that I'll stay. But I'm asking you to let me try. Let me prove that I mean this. Let me show up consistently until you believe I'm not going anywhere. Ryan was crying now, not bothering to hide it. I love you too. I've been fighting it because it seemed impossible, but I do. I love your sharp edges and your vulnerability underneath. I love how you light up when Emma talks about dolphins. I love that you're willing to admit you don't have all the answers. I love that you showed up to a second grade career day like it was the most important thing in the world. It was the most important thing in the world. He pulled her into a kiss that tasted like tears and hope and the terrifying possibility that maybe this could actually work. Victoria kissed him back, let herself feel all of it, the fear and the love and the desperate need to be part of something real. When they pulled apart, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, we do it right. No running when things get hard. No hiding behind work or pride or fear. We talk, we fight if we need to, but we don't disappear on each other. Agreed, and I get to be part of Emma's life for real. Not just visiting or helping occasionally, actually part of raising her. That's a big commitment. I know, I want it anyway. She's going to be so happy. She's been asking about you constantly. Oh, I was terrible to her. I disappeared without explaining why. She'll forgive you. She's got a bigger heart than both of us combined. They sat together in the waiting room until a nurse came to tell them Emma was resting comfortably and they should go home, get some sleep. Ryan hesitated, clearly torn between staying and taking care of himself. I'll stay, Victoria offered. You go home, sleep in an actual bed. I'll call if anything changes. You don't have to. I want to. Let me do this. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Thank you. After he left, Victoria settled into the chair beside Emma's bed. The little girl was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady with the help of oxygen. Victoria watched her, this small person who'd somehow become central to her life in just weeks. Emma stirred around midnight, eyes opening slowly. Victoria? You stayed? I stayed. Your dad went home to sleep, but I'm here. Good. I don't like being alone in hospitals. You're not alone. Not anymore. Emma reached for her hand. Are you and Dad okay now? Did you fix it? We're working on it. We both made mistakes, but we're going to try harder. I'm glad. You make him happy, and you make me happy too. I like having you around. Victoria felt tears threatening again. I like being around. And I'm sorry I stayed away. That was wrong of me. It's okay. Sometimes people need time to figure stuff out. Dad says that's part of being human. Your dad is very wise. He is. But he's also stubborn, and he doesn't ask for help enough, and he eats too much cereal for dinner when I'm not there to make him cook real food. Victoria laughed. I'll make sure he eats real food. Good. Oh, and he needs help with laundry. He always puts my red shirt in with the whites, and then everything turns pink. I can help with that too. Emma smiled sleepily. Are you going to live with us? Because our apartment is small, but we could make room. I could share my rock collection space. Let's take things one step at a time, okay? But yes, eventually, if you want me to. I definitely want you to. It'll be nice having someone else around, and maybe Dad will be less stressed if he has help. Maybe we can all help each other be less stressed. That sounds good. Emma yawned. Will you stay until I fall asleep? I'll stay as long as you need. Emma drifted off again within minutes, her hand still holding Victoria's. Victoria sat in the dim hospital room, watching this child breathe, and felt something settle in her chest. This was what mattered. Not quarterly earnings or successful acquisitions or industry recognition. This. Being present for people who needed her. Being part of a family, messy and imperfect and real. She'd spent her whole life trying to fill an emptiness with success, and all along what she'd needed was connection. Purpose beyond profit. People who cared about her for who she was, not what she could provide. The next morning, Ryan returned looking more rested. Emma was awake and eating breakfast, chattering about a dream she'd had involving dolphins and spaceships. How was the night? Ryan asked Victoria. Good. She woke up once, but went back to sleep easily. Thank you for staying. Always. They got Emma discharged around noon. The doctors adjusted her medication, gave strict instructions about avoiding triggers, scheduled a follow-up for the following week. In the car, Emma sat in the back, still talking non-stop. Can we get pizza for lunch? And can Victoria come? We should celebrate me not dying. You weren't dying, Ryan said, though his voice was strained. But I could have been. Which means we should celebrate with pizza. They got pizza, sat in a small restaurant near Ryan's apartment, Emma between them in the booth, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like they'd been doing this for years instead of just figuring it out. After Emma went to rest in her room, Ryan and Victoria sat on the couch. "So what now?" Ryan asked. "How do we actually do this?" "Honestly, I have no idea, but I think we start by being honest about what we need. I need you to tell me when I'm prioritizing work over you both, when I'm slipping into old patterns, and I need you to tell me when my pride is getting in the way of accepting help, when I'm trying to do everything alone because I'm too stubborn to admit I need support. Deal. What else?" "We include Emma in decisions that affect her. She's smart enough to have input." "Agreed, and we go slow. I don't move in tomorrow. We date properly, let Emma adjust, make sure this is sustainable before we make big changes." "How slow?" Victoria smiled. "Slower than I want, which is probably the right speed." "I can do slow, as long as I know you're committed." "I'm committed, terrified, but committed." Ryan kissed her softly. "Terrified is okay. We can be terrified together." Over the next 3 months, they figured it out piece by piece. Victoria cut back her work hours, delegated more, learned that the company wouldn't collapse if she wasn't available 24/7. She picked Emma up from school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, helped with homework, learned to make grilled cheese the way Emma liked it. She attended parent-teacher conferences and sat through dance classes and read endless facts about marine biology. She learned Emma's tells when her asthma was acting up, kept an inhaler in her car, knew which hospital to go to in emergencies. She and Ryan worked together on Cole Education's sustainability, implementing the revenue strategies they'd developed. The corporate partnership program took off, bringing in steady funding. The sliding scale tuition worked better than expected. By March, they were operating in the black for the first time in years. Victoria slowly moved pieces of her life into Ryan's apartment. A drawer of clothes, then a toothbrush, then half the closet. She kept her penthouse, but spent most nights in the cramped third-floor walk-up that felt more like home than anywhere she'd ever lived. She learned to cook real meals instead of ordering takeout, learned to enjoy quiet evenings watching documentaries with Emma's running commentary, learned to ask for help when she needed it instead of trying to handle everything alone. And she learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up consistently, even when it was hard. It was about choosing connection over control. It was about being vulnerable enough to let people see your damage and trusting they'd stay anyway. In April, Emma's school had another career day. This time, Emma's presentation included photos of both Ryan and Victoria. "My family works together," Emma told her class. "My dad runs a literacy center, and Victoria helps him make it sustainable. She also helps me with math homework, even though she says word problems are unnecessarily complicated. And she comes to my dance recitals, even though I'm not very good yet." Victoria sat in the tiny chair next to Ryan, holding his hand, and felt something she'd spent 30 years searching for. She felt like she belonged. After the presentation, Emma ran to them beaming. "Did you like it? I included Victoria this time because she's part of our family now." "I loved it," Victoria said, "though I maintain that word problems are unnecessarily complicated." "They are. But you helped me anyway because that's what families do." That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan and Victoria sat on the couch talking about the future, about maybe looking for a bigger apartment, about Victoria taking a more official role at Cole Education, about what their life might look like a year from now, 5 years from now. "I never thought I'd have this again," Ryan said quietly. "After Sarah died, I thought that was it. One chance at love and I'd used it up. But here you are. And I get to feel this again. Different from what I had with Sarah, but just as real. I never thought I'd have it at all," Victoria admitted. "I thought I was too broken, too focused on the wrong things, too scared of vulnerability. What changed? You and Emma didn't let me hide. You saw through all my defenses and cared about me anyway. You gave me a reason to try. We make a good team. We really do." Ryan pulled out a small box. "I wasn't planning to do this tonight. I was going to wait, make it special, but sitting here with you talking about our future, it feels right." Victoria's heart started racing. "Ryan, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out, but I also know I want to spend my life with you. I want to raise Emma together. I want to build something that matters, not just professionally, but personally. I want you to officially be part of this family." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, nothing flashy or expensive, just a thin gold band with a small stone. Victoria Hale, will you marry me? Victoria looked at the ring, at Ryan's hopeful expression, at the life they'd built together in just months. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was too fast, too risky, too different from everything she'd planned. But she'd spent 30 years listening to logic, and it had left her empty. Now she was learning to listen to something else, to the part of her that felt alive around these people, to the part that wanted messy and imperfect and real instead of controlled and successful and hollow. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Ryan slid the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Victoria felt the last of her walls finally come down completely. She'd built an empire by keeping everyone at a distance. Now she was building a life by letting people in. They told Emma the next morning over breakfast. She screamed so loud the neighbors complained, then insisted on calling everyone she knew to share the news. Victoria's going to be my stepmom, she announced to her grandmother, her teacher, 3 friends from school, and a somewhat confused receptionist at the dental office. We're going to be a real family. We already are a real family, Ryan corrected gently. I know, but now it's official. Now Victoria can't leave even if she gets scared again. I'm not leaving, Victoria promised. Scared or not, I'm staying. And she meant it. She'd finally found what she'd been missing all along. Not power or success or financial security. Those things were fine, useful even. But they weren't enough. What she'd been missing was this: a partner who challenged her to be better. A child who looked at her with uncomplicated love. A purpose beyond profit. A place where she belonged not because of what she could provide, but because of who she was. She'd been a billionaire CEO with an empire at her feet and no one to share it with. Now she was a partner, a mother figure, part of a small nonprofit fighting to help kids read. She had less power, less control, less of the success markers she'd spent her life chasing, and she'd never been happier. They got married in June in the backyard of the community center, surrounded by staff and volunteers and kids who'd benefited from their programs. No fancy venue or expensive catering, just folding chairs and potluck dishes, and Emma as flower girl taking her job extremely seriously. Marcus officiated, Sarah cried through the whole ceremony, and Emma gave a toast about how she'd known from the beginning that Victoria and her dad were perfect for each other, even though the adults took forever to figure it out. Victoria wore a simple dress she'd bought off the rack. Ryan wore the same suit from their first meeting, properly fitted this time. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising not perfection, but presence. Not to never mess up, but to always try. Not to avoid fear, but to face it together. When they kissed, the kids all cheered and Emma shouted, "Finally!" loud enough that everyone laughed. At the reception, Victoria looked around at the community they'd built. At Ryan talking to parents about their kids' progress. At Emma showing off her rock collection to anyone who'd listen. At Sarah managing logistics with her usual efficiency. At all these people who'd become family, not through blood, but through choice. Peter appeared beside her, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes, but smiling anyway. You look happy. I am happy. It's weird seeing you like this. Relaxed. Actually present instead of mentally calculating your next acquisition. I'm still calculating, just different things now. Like how to expand our literacy program without compromising quality, how to balance work and family, how to be the person Ryan and Emma need. And how's that working out? I mess up regularly. Just yesterday I missed Emma's science fair because I forgot to put it on my calendar. She was disappointed and I felt terrible and I had to apologize and do better. That sounds frustrating. It is, but it's also real. I'd rather mess up and apologize and try again than be perfect and alone. Peter nodded. For what it's worth, I'm glad you figured this out. You were miserable before, even if you didn't know it. I knew it. I just didn't know what to do about it. And now you do? Victoria looked across the yard at Ryan, who was dancing with Emma to music playing from someone's phone. Emma was standing on his feet, laughing as he spun them both in circles. Yeah, Victoria said, now I do. She'd learned that success wasn't about accumulation. It was about connection. It wasn't about never needing anyone. It was about being brave enough to need people and let them need you back. She'd learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that asking for help didn't mean failure. That being messy and imperfect and human was better than being polished and powerful and completely alone. She'd learned that love wasn't about finding someone who completed you. It was about finding someone who accepted you incomplete and helped you become more whole anyway. Most importantly, she'd learned that the empire she'd built, the money and power and success, none of it mattered as much as this, as being someone's partner, as helping raise a curious, brilliant child, as being part of something bigger than herself. That night, after the celebration ended and they'd cleaned up and put an exhausted Emma to bed, Victoria and Ryan sat on their apartment steps watching the neighborhood settle into darkness. "We did it," Ryan said. "We actually pulled this off." "The wedding or the relationship?" "Both. All of it." Victoria leaned against him. "I still can't believe this is my life. 6 months ago, I was alone in a penthouse wondering why nothing felt like enough. Now I'm married to you, helping raise Emma, running a literacy program, and I've never felt more fulfilled." "No regrets? About giving up my old life?" "Not even a little. About being terrible at making grilled cheese? Maybe some regrets there." Ryan laughed. "You'll get better. Emma's a patient teacher. She really is. She's amazing, Ryan. You raised an incredible kid." "We're raising an incredible kid. You're her parent too now." The word settled over Victoria like a warm blanket. Parent. She was a parent. She, who'd never had consistent parents herself, was now responsible for helping shape another human being. It should have been terrifying. In many ways, it was. But it was also the most meaningful thing she'd ever done. "I love you," she said. "Both of you. This whole messy, imperfect, beautiful life we're building. I love you too. Thanks for taking a chance on us. Thanks for making me take a chance on myself." They sat together as the city moved around them, two people who'd been broken in different ways learning to be whole together, building something that mattered not because it was profitable or impressive, but because it was real. Victoria had spent 30 years chasing the wrong things, building an empire that left her empty, accumulating wealth that couldn't fill the void, protecting herself so thoroughly that she'd isolated herself completely, and then a struggling nonprofit founder and his 7-year-old daughter had shown her what actually mattered. Not power, but partnership. Not success, but connection. Not perfection, but presence. She'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not in boardrooms or acquisitions or industry recognition, but here, in a cramped apartment with secondhand furniture, in a community center serving underprivileged kids, in the arms of a man who'd lost everything and rebuilt anyway, in the laughter of a child who believed the world was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. She'd found home. Not a place, but people. A family she'd chosen and who'd chosen her back. A purpose beyond profit. A life that mattered in ways that had nothing to do with her bank account. Victoria Hale was still a billionaire CEO. She still ran a successful company, made strategic acquisitions, commanded respect in boardrooms. But that wasn't who she was anymore. She was Ryan's wife, Emma's stepmom, a partner in building something meaningful. A woman learning daily how to be vulnerable, how to ask for help, how to choose connection over control. She was finally completely and messily and imperfectly herself. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.